My family cut me off for 10 years for becoming a carpenter. Now they've come back asking to hold a reunion at my home. Am I the asshole for refusing? They finally showed up at my new residence after being absent from our family reunions for a decade, during which time they had been cut off. They appeared to have a pale complexion as soon as they entered the room. They were rendered dumbfounded by the next thing I uttered, which was my carefully planned retaliation. The shocking turn of events, however, occurred when I divulged the information that completely demolished their perception of me, as well as all they believed they knew about our history. This is a narrative about betrayal, the strength to rise alone, and the moment when everything came full circle. Check it out, Reddit. In the year 2000, I was sitting on the porch of the house where I had spent my youth, watching my parents and siblings laugh inside the house, despite the fact that I had not been invited to the reunion meal. There was nothing that I had done wrong. No wrongdoing, no treachery, and no drama. Simply put, I did not conform to their conception of success. My younger sister Naomi was the golden child and chose to pursue a career in medicine, while I decided to pursue a different path. My older brother Darren graduated with a degree in law. A carpenter is what I became. The gratification of constructing something with my hands, the scent of sawdust, and the craft itself are all things that I greatly like. To them, however, I was the source of the humiliation that they avoided bringing up during family get-togethers. Small things like birthdays that were ignored, late invitations, and subtle digs about my potential were the beginning of it. One year, they held the yearly family gathering without even informing me that it was going to take place. It wasn't until I saw a photo on Facebook that I found out. Inadvertently, my cousin included me in the group. With a sigh, my mother responded to my inquiry by saying, "We figured you'd be too busy or uncomfortable." I called her to inquire about it. There is discomfort. I was their son and their brother, yet all of a sudden I felt like I made no sense. I made an effort to disregard it. They might have been correct. It's possible that I was the only one who noticed, but it kept happening. Over the course of several years, photographs were uploaded to the internet. I was removed from group chats, and I was not invited to weddings. I decided to stop calling. They failed to take notice. I relocated to a little town that was 2 hours away, and because I was the black sheep, nobody knew who I was. I put everything I had into my carpentry business, and things began to change gradually as a result of my efforts. It did not happen overnight. I worked as a repairman and a bespoke furniture maker for many years, and I lived a humble existence. Afterwards, one day, a local hotel proprietor gave me a commission to design and construct luxury interiors with distinctive themes. The work I did garnered attention from publications, social media, and even a brief television spot. For a period of 3 years, I was not only stable. All was well with me. After purchasing a piece of land, I proceeded to construct my ideal house from the ground up. Everything from the beams to the panels to the inches was mine, and I had constructed it all by myself. During those years, I never once communicated with my family in any way. It is not out of animosity, but rather pure preservation. On the other hand, I saw the expressions. They started like my business articles and left remarks that were really vague, such as, "Proud of you." As if that could make up for 10 years of being excluded from that. I did not give a response. After that, there was a communication from my brother Darren that came out of nowhere 2 months before Christmas. "Mom wanted to know if you would be able to host the family reunion that will take place this year. Your place is really stunning." I could not believe what I was seeing on the TV. After 10 years of silence, after they severed my connection with them like a sick limb, they indicated that they wanted to utilize my house as the backdrop for their reunion. Simply said, it was a casual request, as if nothing had ever occurred, and there was no apology or acknowledgement of the past provided. I failed to provide a response. On the contrary, I devised a more advantageous method. On Christmas Eve, shortly after sundown, I lit up the enormous handcrafted tree that was in my living room, baked the cinnamon pastries that my grandmother used to make, and set the table with flatware that was in excellent condition. I invited one guy, Mr. Hampton, who was the best friend of my grandfather, who passed away. In a time when no one else did, he was the only person who treated me like a member of the family. Over the course of several decades, we sat, ate, and exchanged stories. The environment was calm and serene. After that, there was a knock. As soon as I opened the door, I was greeted by my entire family, including my parents, Darren, Naomi, their spouses, and even my cousins. all of whom were standing there with a pie that had been purchased from the store. The very first person to speak was Naomi. "It's astonishing how beautiful your home is." Brendan blew a whistle. "What? You didn't believe the wood company was that successful, did you?" The eyes of my mother darted from the handcrafted columns to the polished oak floors as she peered around the room. "My dear, you have done a wonderful job for yourself. Is that true?" At one point, we were considering the possibility of spending the evening here with each other. Similar to the past. My body did not flinch. I could not remember any of the old times. Keep in mind? It was never extended to me. To clear his throat, my father did so. "Don't let us get caught up in the past. Today is all about the family." I moved to the side and gave them a peek of the warmth of the living room, the fire that was nice and inviting, and the laughter that was coming from within the house between Mr. Hampton and me. I then stated it in a manner that was unobtrusive but unmistakable. "You are not going to do so." My mom blinked her eyes. "What is it?" "You severed my connection for a period of 10 years. There was neither a phone call nor a personal visit. But when I needed you the most, you turned your back on me. You can now see what I've constructed, and all of a sudden, I'm useful once more." Individuals who arrive at a time that is convenient for them are not welcome tonight. It is for those individuals who have never left. Their complexions became drab. Nothing came out of Darren's mouth as he attempted to speak. With an evident expression of unease, Naomi averted her gaze. A tight nod, almost as if in embarrassment, was all my father did. Then I said, "You did not lose me because of my professional life. I was unable to forgive you because you made me believe that I was never good enough. And at this point, it is too late." When I closed the door, it was not with rage, but with peace. As Mr. Hampton entered the room, he raised his glass. To the family that I had chosen, I smiled and raised my hand to the foundation of something that will last. After I closed the door, there was a silence that did not have the effect of haunting you. He was the kind of person who liberates you. I had the feeling that I had finally expressed all that had been buried deep within me, and it had been years since I heard that feeling. My voice was not heard. I did not go into a commotion. Despite the fact that I just held up a mirror and showed them what they had chosen to overlook, they did not react favorably to the information. My mobile device exploded the following morning. I have missed calls, texts, and even emails. A voicemail was left by my mother, and her voice was shaking as she spoke. She seemed to be trapped between rage and guilt. "This is not how a family operates, and I have no idea what you are doing to think you are doing it. In the case of your blood, you do not smash the door." I did not give a response. After that, the campaign of guilt began. Naomi sent me a lengthy text message in which she discussed how family members are prone to making mistakes, and how isolating people is just as hurtful as excluding them. Darren then proceeded to deflect the ball in a traditional manner. "In every situation, you took things far too personally. We did not add you because of this reason. It was simpler to do it that way. Simpler for them to do. They were not intending to get back together. Without ever accepting responsibility for their actions, they were attempting to rewrite history. Not me was what they were looking for in the end. And that was the picture. They were now able to attach themselves to one of the successes. Home that was made by hand. What is known locally. They wanted to have the appearance that they had always believed in me, despite the fact that their black sheep had turned golden. However, I was not having any of that. The real controversy began when Naomi went on social media and posted a status that was not very specific. When you try to make apologies with your family, and they turn their back on you, the pain that you feel is indescribable. All of a sudden, friends who were completely unaware of what had truly occurred began to express their sympathy. I did not pay attention to it until my aunt, who had been a constant presence in the background throughout these 10 years, sent me a direct message. "I am aware that this must be challenging. The post that Naomi made was something that I noticed, and while I won't make any assumptions about it, I will say that you were absolutely correct in what you said." The impact of the message was greater than I had anticipated. While I was thinking about it, I questioned everything. Did I go too far with this? Had I evolved into the guy I had contempt for? Then, however, I recalled the endless birthdays that I had to celebrate by myself, the notes that I had left for Reed, and the years that I had to watch my family pretend that I did not exist. I did not harbor any resentment. Having just finished carrying weight that was not mine, I was relieved. I chose to concentrate on the life that I had constructed, rather than allowing myself to be drawn back into their drama. My business was doing better than it ever had before. I was scheduled for interviews with local media outlets months in advance, and they began calling me for interviews. It wasn't because I was a showy person, rather, it was because my work gave itself away. To the point where I began mentoring young kids in the community who had been told they were not suitable for college or the business world. I even started mentoring them. A portion of myself was reflected in them. Remaining silent, unnoticed, and resolute. That eventually became my new family. Rather than the one I was born into, I selected the one I was born into. Meanwhile, the family that I had left behind continued to descend into chaos. Once again, Naomi made an update that was passive-hostile and focused on entitled siblings. I received a lengthy email from Darren in which he attempted to portray himself as the mediator who consistently made an effort to engage me, and in the end, my mother resorted to mailing a Christmas card that included a note that she had written herself. In the event that you are prepared to rejoin the family, you should return home. On the other hand, I was at home. I was the one who had constructed it by hand. The most significant change occurred one evening when I was awakened by a knock at my door. Rather than coming from them, it was from a person I hadn't seen in more than 15 years. It is Rachel, my cousin. She appeared to be older, exhausted, yet unflinching. She did not provide a pre-rehearsed apology when she arrived. She arrived with the truth. I was present at that time. I am aware of this, she whispered. During all of those years, I witnessed what they did to you, but I chose to remain silent. I ought not to have done that. We sat for a whole day. In her conversation with me, she shared with me how unsettling it was for her when they removed me from the conversation. A time when she attempted to speak up, but she was advised to refrain from doing so. Isolating himself is a decision that he has made. Until she started to doubt it, she had believed it. She continued, I just want you to know that you weren't imagining you were seeing it. A wrong was done to you. In addition, I am sorry that I did not advocate for you. Despite the fact that it did not cure everything, that moment was pivotal. It demonstrated that I was not the only one. That someone had seen the truth even though they were silent about it. Personal development, professional development, and emotional development continued in the months that followed. At that point, I was no longer attempting to prove anything. Merely, I was conducting my life according to my own standards. Then, however, things took a turn that I had not anticipated. I received a letter in the mail on a particular evening in the early spring. Authentic, official, and lawful. When I opened it, I felt a sickening sensation in my stomach. The death of my father had occurred. Not all of a sudden. Despite the fact that he had been sick for some time, no one had bothered to inform me about it. It was not my family that wrote the letter. It was someone from his legal team. It was written with my name on it because he had left something for me. Rather than money or land, it is a notebook. My father's handwriting was also present within. Brittle and faded, but unmistakably from his hand. The information that I discovered in those pages not only altered everything that I had previously believed to be true about our relationship, but it also laid the groundwork for the conclusion of this tale. Before I finally opened the journal, I had been holding it in my hands for close to an hour. Over the course of time, it had been weathered, bound in leather, and marked. Following the name of my father, which was scrolled over the inner cover, there was a single date written underneath it. The month of October 2008 was the year that everything started to go apart. While I was flipping through the pages, it became quite evident that this was not merely a diary. There was a confession made. On each and every page he detailed the fractures that existed inside our family. The need to preserve an image, the successful family, the accomplished children, and the illusion of unity, were all topics that he documented in his writing. It was not out of anger that Dad worried, but rather out of fear, when I decided to pursue a career in carpentry, rather than college. When it came to defending you, I was hopeless. According to one of the entries, I thought that if I ignored it and pushed you aside, you would come back around. I made a mistake. At each and every instance in which I excluded you, I broke something within me. His statements conveyed a sense of anguish, feelings of regret, but also timidity. The remorse he felt for his decision to choose silence over love and image over integrity was something he carried with him until his grave. However, the last entry affected the most people. Since you are reading this, it indicates that I have left. Also, I am aware that I have no authority to request anything from you. You, however, are deserving of being heard, which is why I left this for you. You are entitled to better. In addition, you have the right to decide what comes next. My mind kept going back to that line for several days. I did not attend the funeral service. Naomi made it a point to share glitzy black and white photographs of the event on social media, even though she was crying while wearing fancy sunglasses. The sad expression on Darren's face as he stands at the podium. This was performance art, and I had no interest in participating in it. However, I did come to a conclusion. After a week had passed, I had a letter that was handwritten and completely sealed delivered to my mother's residence. Within it, I include a single copy of the last entry that my father made in his journal. Just the truth, which he had concealed for almost a decade, without any criticism or insults. I have included one of my own sentences underneath it. I was obliterated by you for a decade. I want to remind you that I was never truly absent. To put it simply, you weren't looking long enough. And that ought to have been the conclusion. But there aren't many clear exits through life. After a period of 2 months, Naomi arrived at my training facility. There is no call, no warning. It was as if she had not blocked me for a decade when she suddenly strolled in. In a low voice she stated, "I read it." I arose from the chair I was sitting in and looked around. I had no idea that he had an attitude like that. After putting the tool down, I came to my feet. "Has it caused a shift in how you feel?" She was hesitant. Furthermore, that quiet was more convincing than anything else. "This is not a place where I request forgiveness." In addition, she stated, "I came here because I believe he wanted us to stop acting like we were not. It is no longer something I wish to do. While you have every reason to despise me, I am not here to rewrite anything that you have written." Simply said, "I want to be honest with you." That is exactly what she did. I was told of the jealousy, and how I appeared to be free when others felt as though they were being confined by expectations. My absence caused them to feel guilty, and as a result, they chose to cover it up by dismissing me. The manner in which my success transformed me into a danger rather than a brother. It was all admitted by her. For the very first time it seemed to be happening. I did not give her a hug. I did not experience a coma. Simply put, I listened. And when she had finished, I simply responded by saying, "I appreciate the honesty, but it does not mean that the past is history. The only thing that implies is that we can stop lying about it." She gave a slight nod. I think that to be sufficient. Despite the fact that we did not develop a close relationship after that, we did become honest. Which was more than I had ever anticipated. Regarding Darren, he never made another attempt to get in touch with me, not even after he found out about the journal. As he had done in the past, he maintained his silence, allowing it to serve as a shield for his pride. I did not attempt to get closure from him. Some individuals are only able to comprehend the concept of loss when they have nothing left to hold on to. I had already moved on, but the true moment of closure arrived on the Christmas of the following year. This time, my home was packed with people who were not members of my biological family, but rather folks who had become a part of my inner circle. My cousin Rachel, Mr. Hampton, the young apprentices I coached, and the neighbors who had become like family were all members of my family. During the quiet moments I stood by the fire and stared at the room that I'd constructed with my own hands. We laughed, we ate, and we told stories. Also we shared stories. In spite of the fact that I didn't have to say it out loud, I was having the same notion. It wasn't me who was the bad apple. Just now, I was the first person to leave the herd and go away. I discovered something that was superior to acceptance as a result of my actions. My mind was at ease. After everything was said and done, I did not require their approval, their apology, or their acceptance. I was surrounded by individuals who got me for who I truly was, and I constructed my own life from the ground up. Moreover, when the moment came, I did not have to yell out about it. I merely went around and showed them what they had decided to discard. What I did was exactly my retribution, and it was plenty. Make sure to give this tale a like, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if it has the ability to move you. There are more compelling true life experiences like this one. Keep tough and keep strong until we meet again. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. I quietly bought my brother's company and let Grandma reveal the truth at Easter dinner. It wasn't for revenge, it was to end the silence. Easter dinner at my folks' has always happened. Same food, stories, overcooked ham, An awful tension that hangs to the walls like baked pineapple and boiling vegetables. Ben, my older brother by 3 years and 100 recognized accomplishments, takes his place at the head of the table like a throne every year. Dad always cut the turkey on that end, so he didn't get that spot. Ben always sat next to him, soaking in approbation like sunlight in the family plant. The same happened this year. Except it was. I returned to town after finalizing a deal that gets you Googled. Of course, quietly. Few LinkedIn lines, no interviews, no press photos, and a Friday 400 p.m. company-wide email. That suits me. I operate under the radar for results. Ben acts like a library foghorn. Noisy, relentless, and determined the world must hear him and his words. So, mashed potatoes were passed. Dad had 2 scotches. And Ben started his latest diet rant about how the tech sector is not for the weak. Something about hustle culture, tensioning deliverables, and overestimated emotional intelligence. I wasn't listening initially. My main concern was cutting the dry turkey breast without it collapsing into sawdust. And then he said it. He said, leaning back like a king in court, that not everyone can succeed in IT. He looked around the table for applause or a nod from Dad. Indeed, Dad gave it to me. Only employs that hushed grunt of agreement when Ben talks. The sound that meant my boy always aimed high. I didn't blink or react, simply sipped red wine while my brain processed that. Grandma Jean looked at me. She hadn't spoken, but her eyes were narrowed, her warning sign. Another boasting round followed. Ben boasted about firing 1/3 of his workforce last month, like he was a strong leader. He termed it, right-sized. I called it. He laughed. He said I wouldn't comprehend because I wasn't in the trenches. Mom was moving in her seat to defuse the situation before it became a weekend-long passive-aggressive minefield. When she questioned how the company was going, he spat out numbers, revenue predictions, Q1 losses, and investor pressure. All of it was amazing unless you understood it. Which I did. I kept quiet not because I was frightened to speak, but to see how far he'd dig his own hole before someone gave him a lantern. Grandma was that someone. Grandma Jean is 90, but she can pay her own taxes, roast a chicken, and play whack-a-mole with egos. She constantly thinks long-term in our family. Mother, watcher, who recalls everything and forgets nothing. She waited until Ben breathed between Q4 pivot strategy and chain of command management. She turned to me, unwilling to melt her innocence and butter in her mouth, and uttered the question that would upend the table dynamic. Is that why your company bought Ethan? You could have heard a pin drop. Not simply a battery, dust particle, breath, or heartbeat. Ben froze. Fork near mouth. Dad stopped chewing mid-bite, which rarely happens until someone dies or the electricity goes out. Mom stared at her wine glass as it held the universe's secrets. And I? I kept eating my roll like nothing happened, like she hadn't lit a match in a propane-filled room. Ben blinks. Once or twice, then exclaimed too loudly and fakely. The voice rose half a tone higher than normal to say it wasn't like that. Merger. Strategic alliance of shared interests. Grandma frowned. She stated the only way grandmas can, when they know you're full but want to watch you squirm longer. I said nothing. Not yet. You don't waste a first shot when the truth is loaded. You want impact. Ben didn't know, and no one at that table saved me, and Grandma knew that I'd watched his company go downhill for 8 months. I acted when the board was desperate, layoffs hit, and morale was low. He was clean, legal, efficient, and on my org chart. Despite not wanting revenge, it tasted like it. An Easter meal was served. My brother was red-faced, my parents astonished, and my grandmother smiled like a cat who knocked a vase down and challenged you to chastise her. That moment has no sequel, just silent. Pure pain, lovely quiet. The truth sometimes rings loudest in the room no one saw coming. I knew there was more when I grabbed the gravy. The beautiful mirror my brother had erected around himself had its first break. I would let it fall apart with the nicest grin, as Grandma taught me. Have you noticed how certain families don't hide their favorites? It wasn't subtle for us. Ben was the golden child from the moment he was born, with full hair and a smug cry like he owned the place. I arrived 3 years later, quieter, squishier, and appearing more like an afterthought than a plan. Mom always said I was her surprise. However, throughout the years, I felt like the consolation prize for parents too fatigued to focus on a second child. Ben was applauded, got the checklists, He had everything before I knew I wanted it as a kid. First bike, sparkling red, hand-picked from town's best store. When I could ride, I got his old one, spray-painted blue with wonky wheels. The first car was a second-hand but clean Civic with a stereo that annoyed the neighbors. Mine? Mom's old Taurus reeked of foot and misery. They termed his ambition. It was luck or background noise when I did well. I wasn't mad, not then. Anger needs heat. So I had frigid resolve, a slow burn, and a quiet inventory I started keeping in my thoughts. Ben was boisterous, charismatic, and famous. Homecoming court, varsity, soccer, dean's list. Every family portrait showed him front and center, chest out like he created confidence. I was usually blinking or holding someone else's jacket near the frame's edge. Ben was touted as destined. Maybe politics, business, anything bright and significant. In the 90s, being quiet, smart, and into computers meant we didn't know what he was doing, but at least he wasn't doing drugs. Nothing was said about it in college. With confidence and student loans, Ben got into MIT early. The whole family barbecued like he was drafted by NASA. I didn't receive a card at community college 3 towns away. It didn't bother me. I realized early on I'd never win by playing his game, and trying to outshine Ben at his parade would get me squashed. Instead, I played another game. Longer deadlines, fewer applause, higher stakes. Then studied in impressive-sounding computer science with a minor in business and interned at well-known companies in the summers. I freelanced under a bogus firm name because clients wouldn't take me seriously. I developed websites, maintained networks, and coded like my future depended on it. Honestly, it did. I remember calling him the summer after his junior year for aid with a problem. Brother to brother, he might throw me a bone. He laughed hard, like I'd asked him to clean my toilet or do my taxes. Advised me to Google it like everyone else. I never forgot. It stung, but it revealed his true nature beneath the polish. It told me to never ask him again. Then I got serious. I quit community college because I realized I didn't need a degree to achieve what I was building. Self-taught the rest. By messing up and starting over, I learned more than I can count. I learned to develop in 3 languages, launched little tools and apps, flipped a few ventures, and built a company no one had heard of, but produced real money. I silently built my own while Ben meticulously calculated how to impress the next management up the line. Over the years, we drifted like 2 ships in different currents. He wore expensive outfits to family functions, promoting his company's latest product, and bragging about bonuses and conferences. I arrived in jeans, generally late, spoke little, and left early. I enjoyed that no one knew what I did. They thought I was coasting, doing freelance work or living in a basement. Let them. I didn't require approval. I needed time. I'd learned to invest time better than them, thankfully. As Ben's companies began to fail, I saw it first. I tracked the trends, layoffs, terrible hires, and bloated structure. I observed their burn rate rise. I made some calls when the board started talking about restructuring. My organization had finances, leverage, and most importantly, no emotional baggage. I didn't target Ben. I targeted waste, opportunity, and mismanagement. I appreciated his inclusion in the bundle as a cosmic joke. I sat alone in my office with the signed acquisition contract the night before Easter supper. The ink hardly dried. Having read it a dozen times, it still feels unreal. This document places my older brother's profession, ego, and story under my name. That wasn't revenge. Not even victory. Another, quieter thing, like scratching a 30-year-old itch. Not perfect, but necessary. I could have told my parents then. Could have contacted Ben to warn him and save face. I didn't because some realities aren't gentle. Some realities need cautious disclosure, especially with the whole friggin' family watching. Especially when your 90-year-old grandma, who never doubted you and has sharper eyes than investors, understands what you've done before you say a thing. The room felt cold, like someone had neglected to close a freezer door. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The hush seemed uneasy. It was shaped like thick smoke curling between each word spoken, wrapping over every fork, napkin, and untouched deviled egg on that long oak table. My brother Ben sat there, jaw slightly open, blinking like a shotgun hit him between the eyes. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. After Grandma burnt him in front of everyone, you couldn't respond with a joke or grin. You can't joke about your baby brother owning the company you left. Not even Ben, master of the arrogant shrug and corporate language, could polish that turd. Since I knew he was about to delve deeper, I took a slow sip of my wine to let it linger and give him space to do so. Mom, bless her endless optimism, leaped in like a person who sees a car crash coming but yet thinks they can stop it with a soothing voice and a shoulder touch. She mentioned that firms merge often, that it's business, and that we shouldn't talk shop over dinner. Her voice was lovely, but her eyes were begging, darting between us like she could make this moment less humiliating for her firstborn. Dad didn't say a word, which was expected. Except for losing football games or making mistakes at work, he rarely showed emotion. He kept biting his overdone ham like rubber, trying to wear it down with jaw muscle. But I saw it in his shoulders, how they stiffened up, and how he grasped his fork too hard. He was dissatisfied while listening. Ben finally found his voice, but it cracked. Not what you think, he answered, attempting to maintain his haughty attitude. I don't work for him anymore. A merger. 2 equal firms merging. Standard strategy. I didn't glance at him. Cut my cold potatoes into a passive-aggressive insult-like shape and let him keep going. He said, "We're consolidating leadership," sounding like a news release. Transitional phase. Things don't change overnight. See him lie to himself in real time? Funny. Perhaps if he repeated it enough times, the sinking ship he was guiding would suddenly return to course because he refused to believe it had hit an iceberg. Then he turned to me like he remembered me in the room. He added, cocking his head in the way that usually got him out of trouble. "You'd be confused. You freelance more, right?" That phrase freelancer lingered there like a disease or nasty habit I couldn't break. He said it softly, but with that sharpness he saved for when he wanted to cut me in front of others without looking like the aggressor. It was then I said it. I told him. My voice calmed the surgeon who signed your severance package last week. The punch didn't feel real. It felt like turning on a light. There was tension in the room. Next, I held a mirror up to him to show him what we'd known for years. He blinked again, looked at me like I was speaking another language. Like they'd changed our lives' rules without him knowing. They did because I wasn't letting him talk over me for the first time. I didn't dodge or ignore his jabs. I let it be raw and basic. No need for fireworks. Dad stood up then. He stood slowly, softly, pushed his chair back like it weighed more than it should, and left the room without saying anything. Silence, footsteps, no spectacular retreat or angry glance. That was worse because if he'd yelled, it would have been expected. As in a novel, this quiet feels definitive, like closing a door you know won't open again. Ben stared after him, mouth twitching like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Mom reached for his hand, but he pulled away, staring at the corridor where Dad had vanished. Grandma chewed her carrots slowly, as if she'd seen it all before and wasn't startled. I stayed put. I didn't brag. I didn't need to, since some triumphs aren't loud. Cheers and applause are absent. Silence settles in your chest, and makes it hard to breathe, not from sadness, but from the weight of truth, finally settled in. As I looked around the table at the folks who used to perceive me as the shadow of the man opposite from me, I realized something I hadn't dared accept until then. No more proof was needed. No to him, Dad, or them. One already. No master plan or vendetta I'd been carrying for 20 years started it. No. It begins quietly and contemplatively, like most of my important things. My lean-focused company has grown steadily for 5 years. No investors hounding us, no bloated leadership team, just a few smart people who cared about it working. We weren't flashy. We didn't attend every conference in TechCrunch or Patagonia vests. We produced products that worked and made money month after month without approval. While high management conducted yoga retreats and published cryptic LinkedIn statements about resilience, Ben's company earned publicity for announcing things it hadn't created, having launch parties for beta products, and hemorrhaging personnel. I'd been watching them slowly break apart from afar for almost a year, not because I hated them, but because I noticed inefficiencies. Ben's company, once a darling, was a textbook example of how arrogance and overspending can wreck something excellent. During coffee, a friend casually said that they might be seeking a partner, like the weather. "You know they're bleeding talent," he said, tapping his mug. "Wouldn't surprise me if they started shopping around." I smiled and nodded, but my brain had already started crunching numbers, pulling threads, and laying out a map in the quiet way it always does when I smell blood in the water. Because timing is everything, especially in this business, I waited. 3 months later, a contact at a shared venture capital firm emailed me to feel me out. Informal discussion about potential synergies. Translation: They're desperate and you look stable. I played it cool, even though I knew what I wanted. I wasn't interested in bailing them out. But I was interested in their engineering talent, key patents, and customer base that overlapped with ours in all the right ways. I told them we could talk, but quietly. No leaks, no hype, just numbers and structure. Negotiations were slow. They're never when you're dealing with egos the size of small planets. But what struck me from the start was how nobody mentioned Ben. He wasn't on the deck, on the call, or even in the background, which told me everything I needed to know about his situation. They had written him off, boxed him in, and were trying to clean up the mess without saying failure. I was in my office late on a Thursday, when the air felt thick with momentum, and decisions felt like physical objects you could hold in your hand. The document arrived in a password-protected folder with a generic subject line, just another piece of paper in a stack. When I opened it, there it was. Ben Keller, Director of Product Development, reporting directly to me. I stared at that box for a long time, not smiling, not gloating, just still. It was surreal. I hadn't seen his name in a context where I had authority over it since we were kids, when I had to manage the score sheets for our backyard basketball games because I couldn't play without them. I kept score again. But this time the game wasn't pretend and the points were real. I didn't tell anyone. Not my girlfriend, my co-founder, not even Grandma. I let it sit in my chest like a stone dropped in a lake. Ripples spreading quietly outward. Gloating implies you need the wind to validate yourself. I wasn't prepared for Easter. I should have been. I should have seen it coming when Grandma asked what I'd been working on lately and I gave her a vague answer about acquisitions. She saw through it instantly as she always did, but I didn't think she'd drop the bomb at dinner. I thought she'd pull me aside in the kitchen, give me a knowing look, maybe sarcastic and say, "So I guess you're the boss now." But she said it out loud, with that razor-sharp calm that chilled the room like a family drama with terrible lighting and even worse secrets. After the tension, silence, and Ben's attempt to spin it, which I answered with a single sentence, he waited until dessert was cleared to corner me, pulled me aside with a firm hand on my arm to make a point, and led me out onto the back deck like we were having a heart-to-heart, instead of a showdown. "What the hell?" he snarled, his voice harsh and low and full of something that wasn't quite anger but damn close to panic. "You couldn't just let it go." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw it for the first time. He wasn't mad that I beat him. He was scared because I wasn't playing the game anymore. I'd rewritten the rules and he didn't even know what page we were on. Worse, he still thought it was salvageable. He thought he could talk his way out. He didn't get that it was already done, final, signed, and filed. So I said nothing and looked out at the yard where we used to play catch, where he threw too hard on purpose, and I pretended it didn't. The night air had that brittle chill you only get in early spring, like winter hadn't fully let go yet, and neither had we. The back porch creaked under our feet like old wood does when it's trying to warn you that what's coming can't be undone. His face had lost that calm, smug control he wore like a badge of honor. Now it was raw, flushed, jaw tight like he was chewing on glass, but couldn't spit it out. "You planned this," he said. No question, no real charge. More like a desperate grasp for a less pitiful outcome. "Everything was planned by you. You've been waiting for me to fall so you may play hero, or villain. Not even sure which one you think you are anymore." I delayed responding. I leaned against the rail and watched the backyard, the same plot of grass where we used to play till someone wept. I generally get it from him pressing too hard and calling it a joke. The same ground where we buried a time capsule convinced us we'd be legends by now. Ben approached, his voice rising, his fingers twitching as he struggled to control his wrath. "You always hated me for being better," he added, fiery. "Smarter, faster, more driven. You never had the guts to play at my level, so you waited till I slipped and kicked me. Noble Ethan." I turned slowly, calmly, and met his eyes with clarity, not rage, pain, or pride, just the stillness of someone who didn't need his approval anymore. "You never outshone me," I said. "Don't raise my voice, don't rush my words." That struck like a truth so simple it couldn't be argued with. Ben flinched barely, and I saw the shift. His eyes narrowed, his body coiled, and he stepped forward and grabbed a fistful of my shirt in one fluid, reflexive motion. Old habits die hard. He'd done that same move 100 times when we were kids on the field, in the hallway, in the garage, when I touched his stuff. The alpha act, the chest puffing that always got him what he wanted because no one called him on it. Not teachers, Not our parents, and not me until now. But I didn't flinch this time. I stood there still as stone, letting him feel the difference. Ben, I said quietly, my voice a scalpel. And I don't work for you. For a second, he stood there, knuckles white, face inches from mine. Then he let go slowly, fingers trembling like he wanted to hit something but knew it wouldn't help. He took a step back and laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that cracked under the weight of everything he didn't want to admit. You think this makes you a better man? He asked shakily. You think buying my firm makes you valuable? I never needed to buy your company to be worth something, I replied, turning back to the yard. But you had to buy it to prove that. The kitchen window light was on behind us. Grandma stood there, one hand on the counter, the other stirring something she probably didn't plan to serve, but her eyes were sharp as ever, watching us like the final judge in a courtroom we hadn't realized we'd entered. She smiled, just a faint curve at the corner of her mouth. Ben didn't see her. Or maybe he did, but he couldn't face what she meant to smile. He took another step back, shook his head and said, You're not who I was. I didn't reply because what was there to say? He was right. I wasn't. I had spent too many years pretending that silence meant weakness, humility meant submission, and success wasn't real unless someone else confirmed it. But now, standing on the back porch with his fingers still warm from trying to drag me back into that old dynamic, I knew better. I had left that version of myself behind, and maybe that's why he was so angry. For the first time in his life he couldn't reach me, rattle me or win. I didn't need to say anything else. The house was mostly settled by then. After a storm, it is always quiet, but tense and loaded. Like the walls were still processing what they'd heard and didn't know how to hold it all. The dishes were stacked in the sink, the table was cleared without ceremony, and the family had scattered to different corners of the house like survivors drifting from a shipwreck. Mom was upstairs folding laundry that didn't need folding. Ben was locked in the downstairs guest room pretending to check emails, and Dad had disappeared into the garage where he concentrated to retreat when things cracked enough to show feelings he didn't want to name and me. I stood alone in the kitchen with the dim light casting long shadows on the linoleum floor, trying to remember how a holiday had become a battleground Grandma entered without saying a word. Clicking like she always did, slow but steady, slippers brushing the tile, nightgown rustling softly, eyes clear and focused despite the hour. She moved to the stove, checked a pot she'd long since turned off, and stirred it once with a wooden spoon like the act helped her think. I was leaning against the counter, arms folded, and we just existed in that space together, saying nothing but speaking volumes. Then she turned to me with that familiar gaze as sharp as at dinner, and nodded toward the den's back hallway. Come on, she said, not as a request, but as assurance. I followed her down the hall, past the creaky floorboard near the bathroom, into the small wood-paneled room where she kept her little treasures for decades. Old books, faded photos, flea market knickknacks she claimed were antiques, and the constant smell of lemon polish and lavender. She sat slowly in her old recliner, motioned for me to take the chair across from her, and reached into the side table drawer without looking. Her hand came out with something wrapped in a worn cloth, something she'd clearly kept hidden for a long time. She gently unwrapped it, and it was Grandpa's watch. It was a simple piece, not flashy or expensive, but it had weight. Not just physical weight, though it was solid in your pawn, heavier than it looked, but history, expectations, and all the silent glances and unspoken lessons Grandpa used to give us when he was alive. Everyone in the family assumed it would go to Ben. The firstborn, the man of action. The one who talks about legacy and honor and continuing the family name like we're royalty instead of middle-class Indianans who paid bills on time and kept Christmas decorations in the attic. She gave it to me. She placed it in my open hand like she was transferring a responsibility, rather than a possession. Your grandfather told me to give it to the one who reminded him most of himself. Quiet, unpraised and determined. I stared at the watch. The way the scratched glass caught the light, the leather band had molded to Grandpa's wrist and was ready to take on mine. I didn't say anything because I had 1,000 questions, but because I knew this was a time for receiving. He needs attention, she said after a beat. Eyes not leaving mine. Always did since he was a boy. He's not bad, just hollow in ways he doesn't understand. But you never needed the applause. You just needed time. Something caught in my throat then. Not a sob, not a tear. Just something heavy and unfinished that had been stuck there since I was maybe 10 years old watching my brother get handed things with open arms while I got instructions and told the door crept behind us. And we turned to see Dad, silent as always, holding a mug of coffee that had probably gone cold. His eyes dropped to the watch in my hand, and he had no expression, just the stonewall face he always wore when emotion tried to show. But then something changed. Just barely. A tightening around the eyes. A softening of the jaw. Not approval, not forgiveness. Just recognition, acknowledgement, maybe even a whisper of regret. He didn't speak, just nodded once and turned away. Footsteps echoing down the hall with the weight of a man who wishes he'd seen things sooner. Maybe wished he'd asked different questions, looked in different directions. Or maybe that was just me projecting. Either way, his silence said more than words. I looked at Grandma again. She was watching him disappear, then turned to me, eyes gleaming slightly. "Some things can't be bought," she said slowly and confidently. "But some people, oh, they're for sale, all right." She leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes, and exhaled like a woman who had just finished the last chapter of a story only she understood. I sat there with that watch in my hand, feeling every moment that had led to this one. Not angry, not triumphant, just still. And that was enough. Monday mornings in tech are usually a mix of chaos and caffeine. Unread emails scream from every tab. Slack messages pile up faster than your thoughts can organize, and calendar invites feel like handcuffs. However, this Monday was quiet in a way that felt orchestrated, like the moment before a string quartet started playing in a hushed theater. When I entered the office, there was no tension, no whispering rumors in the break room, no sudden movements. Just a strange calmness. Like the building knew something had been removed and was adjusted to the new weight. Ben's name was gone from the system by 9:30. No internal memo, no all-hands meeting, no we wish him well on his journey. Just empty corporate platitude. His profile was wiped from the org chart, his desk was cleared, and his access badge was deactivated in the admin log. It was the quietest resignation I'd ever seen. It feels heavier than if he had gone out with a bang, a tantrum, or a smug LinkedIn essay about pivoting into new opportunities. By noon, my inbox was full of emails from current and former employees who had waited for this moment like the weather. The messages weren't long and didn't need to be. Just a steady stream of thank you took long enough, and he was a nightmare to work for. A few were more personal. One engineer said Ben had taken credit for his work 3 quarters in a row. Another described being screamed at during a Zoom call for asking about project timelines. A woman from HR wrote that she had reported his behavior to higher-ups and was told to document more thoroughly next time, as his toxicity needed a spreadsheet to be acknowledged. As I read each word, line, and pixelated gratitude, something strange and unfamiliar began to stir in me. It wasn't pride or vindication but a quieter sense of responsibility. Maybe the weight of knowing that when you remove a tyrant, you have to rebuild the wreckage. That afternoon my phone buzzed with Mom. She never called during work hours unless it was urgent or emotional, usually both. I stared at the screen, wondering if she knew, how she knew, and what she wanted to say that couldn't wait until the next family gathering where she could smooth over the cracks with casseroles and nervous smiles. On the 4th ring, she was crying. Not sobbing or hysterical, just that soft, breathy kind of crying where every word sounds like it's pushing through a storm. She asked why I hadn't told her, how long I'd known, and what happened to the little boys who used to play with Legos on the living room floor, building castles, robots, and towers out of plastic and dreams and sibling rivalry. "Why didn't you speak up?" she asked, voice trembling. And the answer came so easily, I didn't even pause. "Because I wanted a brother," I said. "Not a rival." She didn't respond at first. Just breathed. Let the silence carry all the things neither of us could name. I think deep down she knew not about the company or the deal or the power shift, but about the fracture, the long, slow drift between us that had started years ago and had only grown wider with every month. Perhaps she cried because I waited so long to stop pretending everything was fine. After the call, I sat in my office alone, lights dimmed, door closed, the kind of stillness that only comes after emotional fallout. I leaned back in my chair, hands steepled beneath my chin, thinking not about the company, staff, or budget meetings ahead. I wondered if Ben, the boy with the scraped knees and the crooked grin who laughed too loud and threw baseballs too hard, would ever forgive me or himself. When I got home that evening, the sky was already twilight. I kicked off my shoes, loosened my collar, and dropped my bag by the door. On the kitchen counter was an envelope. It was heavy, not physically, but in a way that feels old and waiting. No name on the front. No return address. I stared at it for longer than I should have, the edges soft under my fingers, the paper thick and folded with care. I don't know why. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I didn't want to know what was inside because not knowing still held possibilities. Words of apology, anger, and a final declaration from a man who had never been big on words. I put it in my desk drawer, unopened, and that was enough for now. Thanksgiving came around like it always does, just cold enough to make your breath visible in the morning, and sentimental enough to bring families back together, ready or not. The leaves were mostly gone, scattered across the lawn like forgotten promises, and the house felt smaller than I remembered. Maybe because fewer voices were filling it. Or maybe because silence makes the walls feel closer. Either way, the air was different this time, not just from the season, but from the absence that sat at the table like a ghost in a folding chair. Ben wasn't there. His name wasn't directly mentioned, not in a way that opened the door to a real conversation, but he was everywhere in the gaps. The empty seat, the untouched place setting that Mom laid out anyway like muscle memory, had overridden common sense. Dad kept glancing at it without realizing it. It was more like grief, but without the clarity of death to make sense of it. A slow mourning for something that had cracked but never quite broken, still sharp enough to bleed but not broken enough to bury. Mom was distant, like someone caught between traditions she didn't want to lose and a reality she couldn't accept. She smiled when she had to, refilled glasses too often, and kept asking everyone if they were warm enough, like it was a question that might fix something if asked again. I caught her looking at me more than once, not with blame, but with that soft, searching gaze only mothers have, the kind that scans your face like it might reveal the child she used to know buried beneath whatever you'd grown. Dad nodded at me when I walked in, a gesture so small and restrained it might have gone unnoticed if I hadn't been waiting for anything more. He didn't speak to me until I was halfway through my second helping of mashed potatoes, and even then, it was just a weather comment, used as bait. Grandma was there, of course, in her usual chair by the window, watching the wind play with the trees and the neighborhood kids tossing footballs between driveways. She looked smaller than she did at Easter, like time had finally started pressing on her shoulder, but her eyes were still sharp, still watching, still cataloging everything in that quiet, knowing way she had. When we met, she smiled gently, not wide or smug, just satisfied that a long game had finally fallen. I went to the den, the old wood-paneled room that still smelled like her perfume, dust, and old books. I sat at her desk, the same place I'd sat months earlier when she gave me Grandpa's watch. This time, I pulled out the envelope that had been waiting patiently in my desk drawer since Dad left it for me. I hadn't opened it because unopened things have potential. Hope, regret, praise, disappointment. Until you read the words. But that night, with the house humming softly and a half-healed family pressing against the windows like cold air, I opened it. There was only one line. You were always enough. I didn't know how to say it. I read it once, then again, and then I sat back in the chair, stinging like I hadn't felt in years, not since I was a kid, and scraping my knee so hard the blood pulled in my sock. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at him, Ben, or the years I'd spent chasing a version of success I thought I needed to prove something. The tears came slowly, not dramatic, just real. Perhaps I needed to prove it to realize I didn't. When I rejoined the others, the house was dimmer, quieter, full of leftover smells, half-drunk wine, and half-heard laughter. I watched Mom hug my cousin goodbye like she might break if she let go too fast. Grandma looked at me one last time before I left and said, "Good. Now keep going." As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I realized the real inheritance wasn't the watch, letter, or nod from my father. It was knowing that I had survived the story they wrote for me and rewritten it without permission. Maybe I won. Maybe I lost something bigger trying to prove I didn't need to. But some dinners change everything, and some silences say more than applause. Would you have spoken up at dinner, or let him believe the lie? Thanks for watching and being part of the drama. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a wild news story. My dad kicked me out because my stepmom falsely accused me of stealing my stepsister's college savings. Because my stepmother had falsely accused me of stealing my stepsister's college savings, my father expelled me from the house. In light of the fact that many individuals have critiqued my response, I am in need of information regarding whether or not I responded appropriately to my estranged father's recent contact with me. My relationship with him has been strained for the past 8 years, and we have not been on speaking terms. After I had just graduated from college, he kicked me out of the house when I was 21 years old. A few months passed during which I was living with my family until I started working and eventually saved up enough money to move out on my own. At the age of 7, my parents went through a divorce, and when I became 17, my father began a relationship with my stepmother, Becca. Additionally, Becca had been married in the past. However, sadly, her spouse had passed away 6 years before the time that she began dating my father. Additionally, she had a daughter from a prior relationship and her name was Alexa, and she was my stepsister, and she was 4 years younger than I was. I had a pretty strange feeling about Becca and Alexa when I first saw them. It seemed as though they were not pleased to have the opportunity to meet me. I didn't give it much attention because I believed it was possible that they were just shy. In spite of this, I found that the more time I spent with them, the less I believed they liked me. Not only did Becca and Alexa move in with us after a year of dating, but that was also the year that I moved out to complete my undergraduate education. When I was at home, I didn't spend a lot of time with them. Only when I returned home for the holidays would I have the opportunity to spend time with my family. Whenever I returned, they would behave in a really peculiar manner when they were near me. Despite the fact that they were married when I was in my second year of college, they did not appear to have any feelings for me on any level. It was as if they did not appreciate my presence, and they appeared to be more happy when it was just them and my father. I am not sure how to put it into words exactly, but it would appear that they did not like my presence. Because I didn't want to be living in a household where I was constantly made to feel unwelcome, I decided to have a conversation with my father about this matter after I had graduated and moved back in with the idea of staying at home in order to save some money before moving out permanently. However, when I brought it up with him, he told me that I was simply making it up and that Becca and Alexa loved me far more than I thought they did. I made the decision to put my faith in what he was going to say and moved back in. Nevertheless, within a couple of weeks, he was shown to be incorrect. There is no doubt that they did not love me. In fact, they detested the presence of someone like me in their lives. Becca never showed any sign of warmth toward me and just occasionally acknowledged my existence. It appeared as though Alexa had a grudge against me, as she was persistently attempting to irritate me and pick arguments with me for no apparent reason. It was something that I brought up with my father on a few occasions, but due to the fact that their conduct around him was totally different, he believed that I was exaggerating the problem and that they were most likely simply growing used to having me around. This continued for a couple of months, and despite my best efforts to steer clear of them, they continued to make my life more challenging than it already was. I even stopped whining to my father about it at some point since I realized there was no purpose in continuing to do so. The only thing I wanted was to put away enough money so that I could finally move out. Becca and Alexa framed me for stealing Alexa's college savings, which has resulted in my being tossed out of my home in a manner that was rather rudely performed. Becca and Alexa were driving me crazy, and I really wanted to move out as soon as possible. One day, around midday, I left the house to go house searching with a number of my friends. I was looking for a new place to live because those two were driving me crazy. After I returned home in the evening, I saw that my father had already arrived. As soon as I walked into the house, he gave me the expression of being highly dissatisfied and instructed me to gather my belongings and go. The fact that I was unaware of what was taking place caused me to be taken aback. I asked him what was going on, and he responded by saying that he had never anticipated that I would turn out to be such a hopeless and desperate lowlife. He never imagined that I would go to such lengths for the sole purpose of obtaining financial gain. Despite the fact that I had no idea what he was talking about, tears began to well up in my eyes since the things that he was saying were so judgmental. Instead of making an effort to communicate with me, he informed me that he was unable to spare any time for my performance and required me to depart without delay. Following that, Becca entered the room and immediately began yelling at me for destroying Alexa's hopes and dreams. It was her assertion that I had done all of this because I was unable to bear the realization that my father had finally moved on with his life. During the time that she was yelling at me about what I was supposed to have done, I was able to piece together the scenario. On the surface, it seemed as though they were accusing me of stealing money from them, specifically a car that they had provided me for unexpected expenses but that I had instead utilized to make expensive expenditures. Becca stated that I had approached her a few weeks earlier, stating that I was running out of money, and as a result, she had added me to the account where she had stored money for Alexa due to financial constraints. Nevertheless, I had almost completely depleted the account, such that there was no money left over for Alexa's college expenses. The money that she had set aside for her daughter was used to purchase a number of new bags, shoes, and garments from high-end brands. It appears that I had lied about the reason I required the money and utilized it to purchase these items. Due to the fact that none of this had actually taken place, I was completely shocked, and she was lying through her teeth. Despite the fact that I requested that she provide me with evidence to back up all of this, my father informed me that there was no need to do so because they had already searched through my room a couple of hours ago and discovered all they required to validate her account. He claimed that he had discovered all of the stuff that had been purchased with that card hidden away under my bed in a covert manner. When I told my father that Becca had never even added me to the card, he informed me that she had removed me after receiving a phone call from the bank that morning. This was because I would have known if she had added me to the card. Although it had taken a few hours to complete, it was over now. In response to my request that he call the bank authorities to verify this information, he informed me that he did not require any other evidence to be aware of the fact that his daughter was a thief and a repulsive individual. In spite of the fact that I exerted a great deal of effort to persuade him that Becca was lying, he did not trust me. At some point, I was forced to depart. Following that day, I did not communicate with my father in any way. He had demonstrated to me the things that were most important to him, and after the manner in which I had been insulted, I had no desire to communicate with him ever again. After moving into my first apartment, I stayed with a buddy for a few days before moving in here. There were a few months in which I had a difficult time making ends meet, but after that, I was able to make it on my own. At this point in my life, I am living a really wonderful life, and I even have plans to purchase my own home within the next few months. Over the course of 8 years, I have not had any kind of communication with my father, and I have avoided every family gathering that involves his side of the family like the plague because I have never wanted to really meet him. We have maintained communication with one another, and my mother had severed her relationship with my father at the same time that I did. This was due to the manner in which he had treated me. However, at this moment, she appears to be taking his side, which is the reason why I am perplexed. It was a few days ago when my father made his appearance at my residence. Because I was quite interested in hearing what he had to say, I decided to open the door and talk to him on the phone. The address was reportedly obtained by him from my mother, as he informed me. It was only lately that he discovered that my stepmother had fabricated the entire situation, and he stated that he was there to apologize to me for all that had happened previously. Alexa's education fund was something that she had hoped someone would pay for. She had been taking advantage of him for his money for a number of years, and he was completely unaware of it because he believed that he was only providing for his family. He wanted me to forgive him and give him a chance after he had just learned something from his in-laws. He wanted me to give him a chance. It would appear that Becca and her parents had a disagreement a few months ago, and they had lately contacted my father in order to inform him of the facts of the incident that led to my expulsion from the house. She had purchased all of those items for herself and her daughter, but she had strategically placed them in my room in order to frame me and give the impression that I was concealing something. This was exactly what I had expected. She even had her parents phone her pretending to be bank personnel in order to convince my father that she had in fact added me to the card. This was done only for the purpose of protecting her reputation. The actual reason she had done all of this was because she was the one who had used the college fund that her late husband had left for Alexa to pay for her education. She had done this by living a lavish lifestyle. In order to avoid giving the impression that she was a gold digger, she refrained from approaching my father with the request to pay for her costs. The fact that she believed my relationship with my father was going to stand in the way of their relationship was another reason why she detested me. Because of this, she had always had a negative opinion of me. That is how she came up with that plan. To get rid of me and to create a circumstance in which my father would be forced to offer to pay for Alexa's college expenses. On account of the fact that the plan was successful, she was able to accomplish 2 goals at once. During the course of 8 years, her parents had remained silent. On the other hand, as a result of their argument, they recently came to the conclusion that it was finally time to unearth some ancient bones and reveal the truth to my father. He disclosed to me that he had already initiated the process of filing for divorce from her a couple of weeks prior, with the assistance of his previous attorney. At this point, he had arrived to make amends with me. In his statement, he mentioned that he was aware that one of my friend's fathers was a well-known divorce attorney. He then requested that I perform my responsibility as his daughter by putting him in contact with my friend's father. A petition that was ridiculously biased in favor of one party had been drafted by Becca and her attorney. A second thing that my father asked me to do was to find a lawyer who would be willing to reduce his fees for him. As a result of the absurd nature of the situation, I ended up laughing in his face before I closed the door. It was hard for me to come up with the idea that he truly thought he could just drop by, apologize, and then ask for my assistance, expecting that everything would be normal again immediately. Clearly, I was not going to be of any assistance to him in any manner, shape or form. It would be necessary for him to make direct contact with my friend's father in order to hire him as a lawyer, and he would be responsible for paying the fee, just like everyone else. The fact that his previous attorney was unwilling to handle the case because it appeared to be too hard and wanted to retire was not something that I was concerned about. Following the act of shutting the door in his face, I instructed him to leave before I contacted the authorities. My mother phoned me after that to let me know that what I was doing was not appropriate. I had the impression that there was nothing further that could be said, but after that, she called me. I am very perplexed as to why she has suddenly taken a position of support for my father, but I became really enraged when she informed me that she did not agree with my decision to refrain from assisting him. It was her assertion that my father was a typical human being, just like the rest of us, and that everyone makes errors. It was unfair of me to hold him to an unattainable standard and to act as if it was unacceptable for him to make mistakes just due to the fact that he was my father. It was not that I had a problem with the fact that Dad had made a mistake by trusting his wife. Rather, the issue that I had a problem with was the fact that he had trusted his wife more than any other person, including me, his daughter. At the time that he kicked me out of the house, he referred to me as a nasty person and a desperate lowlife. I still haven't forgotten that he said those things. In spite of the fact that he had brought me up and had a direct familiarity with me, he believed that I was capable of committing such heinous acts. Not only did he come to apologize, but he also came to ask for my assistance, even after 8 years had passed. It is quite unlikely that he would have come forward to express his regrets if he had not required my assistance. It took him 8 years to recognize that he had made a mistake, and here he was, repeating exactly the kind of behavior that I had detested him for. I had loathed him for it. I made an effort to explain this to my mother, but she just couldn't seem to get past the fact that he had accepted responsibility for his actions, regardless of how late it was, and that this was significant. As an alternative to behaving in this manner, she said that I should forgive him and present myself as a more mature individual since I should most certainly assist him. The truth is, even if I wanted to, I don't believe I would be able to assist him in any way. I am a friend of his attorney, and I am very certain that I will be able to ask him to talk to his father and collaborate with my father. But I do not believe that I will be able to persuade them to reduce the price of their services. The most qualified divorce attorney in the area does not come at a low cost. Therefore, why would I even want to commit to something that I'm not even sure I could accomplish? Because of this, my mother and I ended up having a heated discussion about it for approximately 30 minutes, and by the time the phone call was over, we were both feeling very aggravated with each other. On the other hand, she simply refused to view things from my perspective, and I was unable to comprehend what she was talking about since I did not believe that she made any sense. At this point, we are also not communicating with one another, and I am pondering whether or not I made a mistake in this regard. Though I don't believe that what I did with my father was particularly inappropriate, the response that I received from my mother is leading me to believe otherwise. I'm not sure if I made the right decision when I declined to assist my estranged father in the divorce proceedings. Consequently, I have made the decision that I will not interact with either of my parents. Following the manner in which my father dealt with me, I do not owe him anything. You guys in the comments are absolutely correct. The fact that he apologized to me a few weeks after discovering the truth is evidence that he would not have apologized if he did not require my assistance. He apologized literally weeks after discovering the truth. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who left a comment. I really needed it. Regarding my mother, I am not really sure what has gotten into her or why she is siding with my father after such a long period of time during which she has not communicated with him. On the other hand, I am not very interested in learning what is going on. During our conversation, I inquired as to whether or not she was in contact with my father and whether or not she was talking to him. She responded with a negative. It was revealed to me that she had not communicated with my father for the past 8 years, following the fact that I had been expelled from the boarding house. Nevertheless, he was the one who had attempted to get in touch with her on the day that I had slammed the door shut squarely in his face. She explained to me that he had been crying, which was the reason why she had chosen to listen to what he had to say. My father is not exactly a particularly emotional man, and it is quite difficult to make him weep, so she wanted to know what was going on that had caused him to contact her. She wanted to know what was going on. She was able to learn the truth about what had transpired when he attempted to apologize to me in this manner. In addition to that, she had not communicated with him in the past 8 years till that point. Considering that she was in the exact same position as I was at the time, I find it difficult to believe that. It would be more challenging for her to forgive him as a result of the divorce that occurred between my parents. They were really good friends, and I think that this event has brought them back together or whatever has brought them back together. No matter what it is, the response of my mother has made me realize that she doesn't know me as well as I had previously believed she did, and she most certainly does not comprehend what I am saying. In the event that she had, she would not have become angry with me for not immediately forgiving my former father. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to avoid both of them as much as possible. It is not going to be all that tough for me to refrain from communicating with my father because I have been doing so for the past 8 years already. On the other hand, it is going to be very challenging for me to avoid interacting with my mother. Over the course of a number of years, she has been the only family that I have ever known, and now I have unfortunately lost her as well. Despite the fact that I feel terrible about it, there is not much that I can do about it. I will give her a week to apologize for what she said and how she responded to it. I will give her that time. In the event that she comes to her senses within that time frame, then that would be fantastic. However, if she does not, I am at a loss for what I will do. After that, I might have to cut her off forever, and the entire idea of doing so makes me feel a great deal of sadness. Nonetheless, I am unable to stop myself from doing so. It is also necessary for me to watch out for myself. Update 2. Alright, 1 week hasn't yet passed, but my mother did get in touch with me. Regretfully, it was not to atone. I wanted to test if she would talk to me, so I hadn't blocked her on anything. She did. She believed it would be better to personally clear the air, hence she texted me yesterday asking whether she could visit me and have a personal conversation with me. Since I wanted to straighten things out with her as well and I honestly felt she would apologize, I agreed to let her visit. I therefore treated her quite kindly and everything when she came around. She began by saying she had been considering our last chat and perhaps she hadn't tried to understand me that well, so she was here to give that conversation another go. She asked me to say the same things, which seemed a little strange, but I did it hoping it would help her understand where I was coming from and maybe she would find it simpler to apologize to me so we could call this once and for good. After I finished expressing my emotions about this whole matter, though, Mom informed me she wanted me to have the same conversation with my father now that we had coolly gone over this. She understood my dad needed an explanation for everything and I could respond with respect instead of slamming doors closed. He persuaded Becca to do the same, even though he had believed I had taken her money. He did not call the cops on me. It makes no difference that everything was made up. What counts is that he made every effort to shield me even though he believed I had done the wrong thing. I might so provide him an opportunity to speak with me at least. She would not say no since she knew her daughter had been raised to be kind at heart. But I told her I had no forgiveness in my heart for my father and she did not know me as well as she believed she did. In the past, he treated me like garbage. I have nothing to owe him. Not even an apology. Her not apologizing to me even after all of this infuriated me. I thus advised her to only get in touch with me should she like to apologize following this. I wanted no communication with her otherwise. She then became fidgety and advised me not to act this way as family is all we have at the end of the day. Our life will be horrible if we cannot even rely on them to pardon our mistakes. I asked her to leave as I felt it was just a lot of BS and told her I did not want to talk to her or address this anymore. She told me at last that she cannot leave as she had promised my father she would get me to speak to him. She couldn't go as she had to live up to her promises, unless I told her I would talk to him at least once. She truly wanted me to get things out with my dad. She said she was truly sorry I felt that both my parents had let me down, but ultimately they were my parents and I should forgive them. She said she did not want to lose me. That counts for something since the few mistakes they made were negligible compared to all they had done well in the past. Her even stating that seemed absurd to me. It was her error, I informed her, that she had promised my father she could not even know she could live up to, and it was not my duty to see she kept her word. Once more, I urged her to go, but then she told me she cannot since my dad was waiting to be summoned inside from outside in the car. She wanted not to disappoint him. I at last snapped and began to yell at my mother. This was violated really seriously. She had taken the liberty of bringing my father here, confident she could sway my opinion, but I had made it quite obvious to her I did not want to talk to him. I naturally lost my cool and began yelling at her. I said I was done with her and that she was a horrible mother. She started crying, but it made no difference to me since I was enraged. She kept saying she was sorry about all of this, but I simply kept begging her to leave. I was not in the mood to hear it. After around 15 minutes of dispute, she at last went. I screamed at her as she was leaving and warned her that I would call the cops on her or my father should they ever return. I blocked her then, and I believe I should discuss with a lawyer obtaining a protective order against these individuals should they choose to pay me another visit. Update 3. Alright, so something literally crazy occurred today and I have no idea how to approach anyone about it. I am here to discuss this since I truly need to get this off my mind. Having a day off, I stayed at home today and intended to do nothing. Then Becca and Alexa arrived, and that is not even the most wild aspect of what transpired today. I became enraged when I found they were standing outside my door. I advised them to leave right away, And I even called the cops number. Becca, however, informed me she was there to tell me the truth about my father and specifically why he needed my help, not to bother me. It was good to know she hadn't changed in 8 years. She was exactly as unpleasant and rude as before. Originally I had no desire in talking to her, so I told her whatever she had to say. I was not interested. She then remarked, however, that if I understood what she was here to tell me and could explain why my mother had been abruptly on my dad's side following years of silence, I would most definitely be intrigued. Apparently, I'm not going to lie. That surprised me since I assumed she would not know about any of this. After some thought, I asked her in as I truly wanted to know what was going on. She insisted though, that she was merely coming to tell me the truth and would be leaving without even entering my house. Her daughter told me that a few weeks ago her parents had told her father the truth about the incident that had happened 8 years ago just outside my door. They started a furious argument about it and he resolved to file for divorce. She had been arguing with her parents since she stopped monthly paying them money as she used to. She became a little too avaricious, in case someone wanted to know exactly what they had been fighting over. Even my father wasn't providing the kind of allowance she desired. She started some investigation after her father had decreased her allowance without explanation and discovered that my dad was seeing my mother. She understood he had been conserving money as he most likely intended to be leaving her. She thus chose to remain with him and subsequently apply for a divorce under her own terms finally. But her dad discovered the truth before she could act, therefore their whole conflict took place. They both discovered their own actual hues. Under normal conditions, my dad could have easily ended our marriage without handing Becca anything. But Becca had not worked in the past 10 years, and since he had also been cheating and disloyal to her, she wrote up a petition that would help her. He was not comfortable with that, hence they were battling valiantly. She was telling me all of this because, apparently, my father had threatened her on the phone a few days ago and advised her to back off since I was supposed to forward him to the divorce attorney and subsequently she would be screwed. He was obviously lying, but Becca wanted not to take that chance. She had come to tell me the truth. Though in a sense I was relieved that I at last had an explanation for why my mother had been acting so strangely about my father, I was genuinely stunned that all of this was occurring. Becca said it was up to me whether I wanted to help my dad or not once she had told me everything. She then walked away. She had been of some real benefit to me for the first time in her life, and I'm appreciative of that. I will never be able to maintain contact with my parents once again after this either. It astounds me that my mother tried to gaslight me into thinking my dad deserved a second shot for her own self-serving needs. My parents most certainly fit each other. They are a match made in heaven. Not being in their life anymore makes me happy. Now that I live alone, I would like to thank my lucky stars for having the wise decision not to give any of them another chance. Update 4. Hi. Many wanted to know how things were doing with me since I last blogged here some few months ago. I'm really pleased on my own. It's been going rather well. Though I do miss my mother sometimes, I remind myself of how she deceived me and it helps me to cope with her absence a little bit. A few relatives told me that my dad is now back with my mother once more. His divorce was settled a few weeks ago. I'm not very interested in understanding exactly what he lost in the divorce either. A few of my cousins have been invited to the couple's wedding in a few weeks. Though I don't really care, they wanted me to know about it in case I wanted to show up and straighten things out with them. I most definitely want nothing right with them. Right now, life is as it should be. I'm happier and better off living alone. So I'm really satisfied. Fiancé's graduation party exposes dealbreaker, LGBTQ+ acceptance splits 4-year relationship. We met in college and decided to not get married until we graduated to focus on our studies, and we have been dating for 4 years. He proposed to me during his last semester of his master's program, and he is studying to become a teacher. I graduated with my bachelor's not too long ago, but his graduation party is showing a side of him that I believe to be a deal breaker. His graduation party will be held at his father's house, which has a pretty big backyard, and many of the people from our wedding will be going. However, unlike our wedding invitation list, he said he didn't want to invite Jason, fake name, and his parents because he recently came out as gay. And that led to a conversation. Jason and his parents were invited to our wedding, so that made me ask why he didn't want them at the graduation. He said that the wedding was an us thing, and that he was willing to compromise because it was our wedding. But when it came to the graduation, he said it was a him thing because he was the one who graduated. So he didn't have to compromise, because he did the school work. When I asked what he meant by compromise, he said he'd tolerate Jason at our wedding because that's what couples do. But the graduation was about him. When I asked if he'd support potential future children that came out, he said he'd tolerate it for me, although he disagreed with it. It is my fault for not asking that question earlier before we became engaged, but he made his stance clear. He said he'd be more distant to a child that turned out to be gay and would probably let me do more of the parenting if so. He's always been a gentleman and amazing to me, but he grew up religious, parents were Christians, although he said he's not anymore. I don't think we have a future after he said he would distance himself from a child who came out and leave it to me, and I just want to ask how to tell him so. I'm thinking about another conversation like we had, but I want to ask for the best way to go about it. What would be the best way to tell him that I don't think we have a future together given his stance? First update. Reddit recovered June 11, 2023. A lot of people suggested talking to my fiancé in an open space or my parents' home about my deal breaker, but I wasn't able to do it at my parents' home, although I got to talk to them and they agreed with my reasoning. They said they were disturbed by how easily he admitted he would distance himself from a potentially gay child and that it was a good thing it came out before the wedding. I also got a lot of people calling me out for not broaching the topic of gay children or how he felt about LGBTQ in the years we dated, and that's on me for never thinking to bring up. Going forward, it will be something I ask early on before getting emotionally invested in a relationship. Because I couldn't speak to him at my parents' place, we ended up talking at a place we went for lunch, and I told him that I couldn't go forward in the relationship because he repeatedly said he wouldn't accept any children who came out. But when I said that, he didn't try to take it back and said that he was willing to compromise for me. He said it was better than pretending, to agree with coming out and that he was being honest, but I told him I was done because of his beliefs, and he didn't take it well. He took it fine at the restaurant and finished lunch without saying much else, and he kept saying I was overreacting and that he couldn't believe I wanted to end the relationship over him wanting to compromise. My parents have been helping me with canceling the wedding, but he took his spite online. He made a Facebook rant a few days after that, doubled down on a lot of the things he said, and he said he made it to explain his side of things. He said that I was breaking up with him despite him being honest about his willingness to compromise and not hiding it like many couples internalize things. He also said our country was changing things that were always wrong, such as gay rights, and he said that people were trying to shove gay rights down everyone's throats. He also said that you can't say anything these days because of canceled culture and Me Too catering to sensitive people. And he said that the value of education was dropping because people were becoming more stupid. He also said that that was why he wanted to become a teacher because there weren't enough good ones, and those were just a few of the things in his rant. He also said that Me Too enabled people from the consequences of their behavior, when they should instead look at themselves in the mirror and how they dress too. He never said anything about Me Too during the duration of our relationship or anything that was outspoken about gay rights until his graduation planning, and it was honestly surprising to read what he wrote. As I said above, I will be asking these questions at the start of dating going forward. Lastly, some people suggested reporting my ex-fiancé to the school in my previous post because they said he could be harmful to gay students, and I especially agree after the post he made. I did receive a lot of hateful DMs from people who agreed with my ex and said that I'd be wrong to contact the school. Some even accused me of considering canceling him in DMs and a few comments on my last post, but I don't see it as that. I see calling the school as something that's important because this mindset is harmful to so many, and he is already a substitute teacher at an elementary school. He began subbing before he graduated. I want to ask what would be the best way to go about it. Whether that would be an email, phone call, or potential visit to do it in person. I have already screenshotted the post he made, and I've only answered questions about the breakup from people who have called so far. My parents are helping me with some people who have called them too, but that is my last. Second update, August 20th, 2023. I didn't really plan to make another post, but I received a lot more DMs after my update was shared that made me want to come back, and I read through many of the comments there too, which made me want to address something. To those who called me out for not seeing any signs of his homophobia earlier. You're absolutely right. I just assumed the best and never thought to question it, but I will now ask the tough questions going forward at the beginning of future relationships, such as political stances along with opinions on race and gender, and that should help prevent time from being wasted on people similar to my ex. I just assumed the best because we have another friend who is trans and was always cool with him, and my ex used to like the post that he made when he came out some years back. He also liked a post that he shared at a Pride walk, so there was that too. Going forward, I won't assume anymore because at the end of the day, a like really doesn't mean anything. I sent an email with an attachment of his now deleted Facebook rant to a few places. The school he subs at was subbing at before he graduated, and the school district along with the County Office of Education where we live, thanks to advice provided by a commenter who I DM'd for more advice. I also told people I knew about why we were breaking up and showed them the post, and that did most of the talking for me. I broke up with my ex before contacting the school, and I decided on a text because we didn't live together and also had my dad return the ring to his parents' home where he gave it to his mom and had minimal interaction. I was too scared/cowardly to do it myself, so I took them on their offer to drop it off for me. In the text, I told him that I couldn't marry him due to his homophobic comments and opinion, along with telling him that my parents would drop off the ring so that it was in writing, and I blocked him after sending. He didn't have any belongings at my place, but he's been livid about the way I handled it, and I'll admit that I was afraid to do it face to face because I was a coward, but he took to Facebook again. He made another post talking about how dad returned the ring instead of me and that I didn't give him credit for being honest about his willingness to compromise, and proceeded to ghost him, pretty much erasing the purpose of his deleted post by referring to the same points. I'll admit that I was cowardly about how I handled it, but what really surprised me was when his dad took to Facebook about it too, and he accused me of canceling him for an opinion he shared, along with saying that communication in marriage is dead. He called me reader_Ed in his post and that people like me were the reason Trump lost, because no one had morals. He also said that Trump needed to win again to stop canceling culture, because his son was punished for his opinion. I want to remind you that my ex was not religious despite his parents being big Christians, but I'm guessing he vented to them about it and is back involved in some way given the post. The last thing I'll say is this, and I kept it to the end because I'm not looking for advice, as I'm only taking it from a lawyer on this matter that my parents have helped me contact. My ex called my job and apparently told them that I had CP and that was why he left, and I don't know where he pulled that out of his ass from. I don't know if he talked about the emails I sent to the district involving his post, but my dad seems to think that it might be retaliation, although he's not sure, because it's only been a few weeks. He thinks it could be retaliation for my letter to the district or for ghosting him, but we're looking into a lawyer, as I was recently made aware of the accusation at my job when I was talked to, and that is where my focus lies. I'm not going to make any future posts because I've still received a lot of hateful DMs telling me that I was wrong to report him to the school, but I stand with my decision to do so. I really appreciate the advice I received and hope that at the least, telling the school will have done some good. Someone also suggested looking into LGBTQ things to support and give energy to, and I'll look into that once I'm past this job situation. Third update, September 9th, 2023. I said that last time was going to be my last post, but I really mean it with this one. Before I get into why though, I just want to say again that I'm sorry for not seeing his homophobia earlier. Many people have cursed at me in DMs asking how 4 years of dating never showed it, and I thought I apologized in my last post, but I kept getting those messages, so I just want to say again that I'm sorry and that going forward, I'll ask for political gender beliefs on the first date to not waste time with potentially hateful people. I'm just tired of being yelled at about it, and there have been some supportive comments too. But the majority of them are either calling me out for not seeing it or for wrongfully canceling him and agreeing with many of the points his father made in his Facebook rant. If the news was on TV as we were doing something, eating, my ex didn't voice his homophobia then as many asked. And when we talked about kids, it was wrong of me to not ask what he'd think if they came out. Lesson learned for next time. As previously mentioned, we also had a friend who came out, and he's very close to them and accepting. But with that out of the way, I'll get to why this is my last post aside from the majority of hateful DMs. My ex's dad hasn't stopped posting about me on Facebook, and it's all pretty much the same as canceling culture rants from last time and calling me a leftist, among other things. I have also received a number of social media DMs spouting similar hate to the DMs I received on Reddit, and I directly blame him and his dad for this. I mentioned last time that I was looking into a lawyer, and my parents have helped me with the search, which has been helpful because of how his dad continued. His dad posted my socials and home address to one of his Facebook posts, thus why I deleted my Instagram. And he said that he was going to cancel me back too. Another reason I contacted a lawyer was because I received a threatening DM, but that's the most I'm going to go into specifics. I only received one of those, but it was enough to make me and my parents want to be on the safer side. And that's another reason why I'm done making these posts, because I want this whole thing to be over soon. I really appreciate the supportive DMs I received in the midst of the hateful ones, and I also appreciate the majority of supportive comments from Boru that were sent to me by someone in a DM too. I really hope the whole thing is over soon because it's been draining, but hopefully the lawyer can at least provide some peace of mind. Fourth update, January 27th, 2024. I'm going to update the bottom of my post, instead of a new one, because of the sensitivity of what's happened the past few months. The past few months have been really tough, and the encouragement I've gotten from reading my story on Boru has helped more than I can express. Everyone there has been really supportive, so much to the point that I reread the comments for reassurance when I feel down sometimes. When I broke up with him and told the school about him, I didn't know the next few months would be so tough, So I need to vent to get it out because things have been stressful. When I mentioned how my ex's father has been posting about me on Facebook in my previous posts, he posted my home address, and a link to my socials, in one of his rants, where he said he'd cancel me back for canceling his son. And that led to me, among other things, looking into a lawyer. However, I also moved back into my parents for a few reasons since my last post. Someone slashed my tires in front of my home at night, and to this day I don't know who. I have no proof that it's connected to him putting my address on Facebook, but I think it could have been. I also made a police report, but they didn't find who did it. I also mentioned in my last post that I was getting threats without going into specifics. But to be honest, some of them were DEA_H threats that gave me lots of anxiety. I'm guessing they could be from some of my ex's friends or his father's, but I also received a lot of messages on my socials, since his Facebook post where he linked my socials, that led to me deleting my socials, many cursing me out and calling me woke among other things. My Reddit posts were also picked up by numerous TikTok accounts that share Reddit stories with a video game playing in the background, and I was recently made aware of 3 of them that seemed to garner some attention, one with 80k views and a couple hundred comments. Another with 20k, and a fair bit of the comments were supportive of my ex. That also directed traffic back to my Reddit post that led to a few more hateful DMs since my last update, along with a fair bit of supportive ones too, so that was another wave of messages to go through. I have no quarrel with the videos themselves because many comments were supportive too, and the channels share other Reddit stories too. The fact that some commented in agreement with my ex doesn't make the video bad either, but was just a realization of homophobia. Some comments made fun of Jason for coming out while others said my ex was right to uninvited him. It's just been a lot, and I came back to get it off my chest. I know I'll get more hateful comments after updating, but I also want to say I don't regret what I did. My ex hid his homophobia. We had friends who came out who he supported, and he came to pride marches with them too. As many commented, the mask came off eventually. In regards to the CP accusations from my ex-father, child pornography for those who were confused in the comments in my previous post where I didn't indicate, my parents helped hire a lawyer, but I won't go into specifics on that. All I'll say is that we're taking it seriously and are taking legal action against it. If anything comes from it, I'll share it in an update. The tire slashing and threats also did a number on my mental health, but it showed me some things too. The DMs also showed me just how ruthless people are, strangers who would never say such things to my face. I'm considering moving out of state, but I'm currently with my parents for safety reasons now. I especially appreciate reading the supportive comments DMs that aren't hateful because they really help, and I'm also with a therapist, but progress hasn't been great yet. There's a lot of mental health stuff I don't feel comfortable going into specifics about. It's been a lot of craziness, but I hope it calms down with time. Final update, made by OOP's parents. August 3, 2024. I have been in contact recently about something my husband and I wanted to share, and we asked if she would post it to Boru after they covered some of our daughter's updates. The person who made the previous updates was our daughter, and she shared the post with us as we tried to navigate her situation. Many of the comments from Boru were very supportive, and that is a big reason why I'm here today. The main reason, however, is because she committed suicide a few weeks ago and the funeral has already happened. We fully supported her decision to leave her ex after he showed colors we hadn't seen before. We were also in the process of receiving legal advice regarding the accusations that were made against her too. But even as we did, she was often overwhelmed and depressed. Even to the point of not wanting to get out of bed sometimes or even eat on certain days. We were able to help her find a therapist, but there was so much going on all at once. From the death threats and DMs to the slashing of tires and her ex's father posting her address alongside one of his online rants, she ended up taking an unpaid leave of absence from her job shortly after the slashing to move in with us. Before that, her job also called her into the office to discuss the allegations made against her from her ex, and the culmination of everything was so overwhelming. Her ex and his father posted so much about her with no regards to doxing her, and we are in the process of pursuing them legally for the role they played in everything. Regarding her ex, he is still a teacher as of writing this. His father hasn't stopped attacking her online even after she passed, and we have documented everything he posted. We also told everyone who knew her how proud we were not only of her decision to break up, but also to ensure that his hatred wasn't spread to others by reporting his post to the district, and we owe thanks to the many Redditors who told her how to report it to the district. There were also some comments and DMs that said she brought backlash upon herself by reporting him, but we believe that she did the right thing and that she was braver than most might have been in her shoes. She could have done nothing and simply broke up with him, and no one would have batted an eye. She wasn't obliged to do anything else. But she felt convicted to care for kids she'd never meet. And if she prevented one kid from falling prey to his hatred, it is that much more worth it. For her sake, we are continuing to pursue her ex and his father legally. But we wanted to thank everyone who told her how to tell the district, because we need more people like her and you, and making this post is therapeutic in itself because we've told others how she did the right thing as well. We truly appreciate everyone who supported her and gave her advice. After my abusive husband's death, I'm forced to pretend he was a great man. Despite his mistreatment and affairs, I'm now free. My husband passed away 3 months ago. I was relieved of that. He abused me financially, mentally, and even physically. When I got pregnant, he convinced me to quit my job, saying that he would take care of me. I could never buy anything again without asking his permission. I couldn't even buy a cream without asking his permission, and he decided if I could or not. Even months ago that I had a little money of my own, I had to ask him for permission to buy something. What was mine was theirs and theirs was theirs. But I stayed there because I still loved him and I didn't have a place to go. I had too low self-esteem and let myself be stepped on. When I stopped loving him, he had already had his first affair. He made me believe that I was to blame for the affair because I didn't want to have sex months after my birth. That left me torn and I had to receive stitches. I was already planning my exit and saving money little by little while I was working selling things from home, since he wouldn't let me work outside because he was very jealous. I wanted to pay for a lawyer. He was having another affair with a friend of his, which luckily kept him busier, and I didn't care anymore that he didn't pay attention to me. I wanted him to stay as far away as possible. I knew that man and he knew me. I could have made a big fuss, but I didn't. I kept quiet, planning my way out while he and that man slept together in secret. I only felt disgusted by my husband, nothing more. But my husband died in a way I never would have expected. He is now a martyr. When someone dies, all the sins of that person disappear? Because that's what even my family thinks. Those who knew about his affair and how he manipulated me are now talking about how good a man he was, and we shouldn't insult someone who's dead. Everyone around me talks about how beautiful our relationship was. His family talks about what a great man he was and how he always focused on giving everything to me and our kid. His affair partner hugged me at the funeral, saying that my husband loved me. His friends told me what a great person he was. Everyone talks about how good but he was and how he is now an angel in heaven. And I have to pretend to be sad. The day he died, I cried a lot, but not out of sadness. I cried with relief and I felt free. It would have taken me too many years to save to pay for lawyers with my little store without him realizing that I was keeping money in secret. He would have kept everything. He would have made my life a hell, and I know it because he had told me so every time I stood for myself. But now I have the house, I have everything, I have the monthly money for being a widow. I have my children totally with me. I have started to become a psychologist. Everyone thinks that I do it to cope with my grief, but no, it is to overcome the abuse I suffered from him. It was really hard to pretend to be sad at the funeral, but I did it for my child. I did it because now everything is over and I'm free. If I made a fuss, my ex-mill would have done something so that I wouldn't keep anything. They were just like him. But now I'm just a sad widow who needs help in their eyes, the silly widow who didn't know anything, but that's helping me to be free and have what I deserve. Sorry for the bad English, I used the translator for many parts. Edit. We are not from an Islamic country, and here same-sex couples can live and marry freely. He just cheated on me with a man like he cheated on me with a woman. I guess he was bisexual. Am I the asshole for flipping out on my fiancé for canceling all the vegan food options from our wedding menu behind my back? My fiancé, 31 male, and I, 25 female, are getting married soon. There wasn't much that disagreed on during the wedding planning except for food. Me and my family are vegans, and there are so many reasons why we chose this lifestyle, and one of them being that we have a history of health issues. My fiancé and his family are the complete opposite. They're hardcore meat eaters, which is fine by me, obviously. However, when deciding on the wedding food menu, I wanted to add 5 vegan options. My fiancé and his mom objected, saying it was a waste of money over food that isn't real food. They also argued that this would be offensive for their guests and suggested my vegan options just be the good old salads and appetizers. His mom wanted cupcakes, lol. I said no because for one, it's me and my family who's paying. And two, I want to make my guests feel welcome and not be treated as second-class citizens by being served salad. My fiancé made a face and said, "Isn't that what vegans eat?" I refused to argue about it and said it was final. The other day, I found out that he had canceled all the vegan options and took them off the menu completely and behind my back. I was seething. I called him at work, but he kept hanging up on me. I went straight to his workplace and confronted him there and just flipped out on him. He was stunned to see me. He at first said it was his mom's idea, then told me to go home because I was making a scene at the office. The fight continued at home and he defended himself by saying that I sort of made him resort to doing this after I kept brushing off his thoughts and input and refusing to accommodate his family. But there were plenty of meat options. Why can't I get 4, 5 vegan options when I'm paying for it? He yelled that it was his wedding too, not my family's. My family said it was fine and they'll figure it out and told me to let it go, but I refused. AITA for putting my foot down on this. Verdict, not the asshole update, 1. So his mom messaged me earlier to try to get me to listen to what she had to say after I kept ignoring her phone calls. She spent long walls of text just to address what I did at her son's workplace, calling it all kinds of stuff from immature to unhinged. She then went on to explain how she's noticed that me and my family kept acting dismissive of her son's input and contributions to the wedding. She said that she noticed my behavior towards him and her entire family and wanted to speak up earlier but didn't and tried to keep the peace. She then went on to address the food menu issue and denied her involvement in the cancellation of the vegan option, but that didn't mean she doesn't support her son's decision. Moreover, she thought it was so irresponsible of him to make that move because of my continual refusal to see how this stuff is a waste of money. She also pointed out how I kept saying I paid for it, and said that technically this isn't just my money, it's mine and his because we're getting married. She suggested I wake up and get rid of my money, I paid for it, mentality. She finally mentioned how bad this whole situation is making me look and said that she and her son had already offered a number of compromises that I chose to brush off and decided to make it my weird hill to die on. She said that not only her son is upset but she and the family are as well after hearing about it and suggested I just agree on their compromise and be done with it. This pissed me off beyond belief. I responded by letting her know that I'm still standing my ground on this even if I'll have to call the whole wedding off because of it, because honestly, this is just ridiculous. It is. My mom and dad, they don't even know what to say anymore. Apparently, my fiancé saw my response to her, he's with her, and is now trying to call me, but right now I'm waiting on him to get home and see if he's still insisting on the stance he took. I'll update if there's anything worth adding after we talk. Relevant comments. Comment 1, NTA, are you sure you want to marry this man and his family? They have no respect at all for you and yours. OP, frankly, I have no idea why his mom feels so strongly about getting involved. I only included in wedding planning only because I respect her, but I guess it's like they say, give an inch, and they'll take a mile. Comment 2, info, how many options are there in total? So like 4, 5 non-vegan and 4, 5 vegan, meaning 8, 10 options for meals. Is this a buffet or restaurant reception? Or is this a multi-course menu and so there is essentially one vegan meal with 4, 5 courses? NTA, because he did this behind your back without talking to you. But I'm wondering why he cares what other people eat. Also, he's the AH for claiming he doesn't know what vegans eat. You're vegan. He knows you eat more than salad. OP, aside from the vegan we have 6 options with meat. His mom picked 1. I'm paying for the whole thing. Comment 3, if you marry him, this is the rest of your life. He'll do whatever his mom says when it comes to your kids and managing your life. Update 2, so the talk didn't go well. I waited for him to come home so we could have a final conversation about it, but he still insisted on his stance. For more details, his family are a bit on the heavy side. Nothing wrong with that, they're perfectly within their right to decide how to live, but they get easily offended at the mention of the words weight and food. I tried so hard to focus on the issue at hand, but I noticed there was a pattern of this behavior. He said it wasn't true. And that this was just an attempt for me to throw past conflicts at him in order to win the current one. He claimed he tried to reason with me about why and how his guests might see those vegan options as offensive, also said that his family love food and consider it a big deal, and how he didn't want his family to feel like there's certain options that they couldn't touch, and feel that there's difference in how I treat them versus how I treat my family. He then went on to explain how it's just an event and how my family should just accept what's on the menu, and if they felt inconvenienced, so what? It's just a one-time thing. They're not gonna die if they had salad and appetizers. What he said wasn't a good enough reason for me cause his folks are gonna think and say what they want, but at the end of the day it's my wedding. And to be honest, realizing that my partner himself thinks it's okay to steamroll my opinions and decisions simply because he's prioritizing others and their opinions over me was really upsetting and not something that could be looked past. Normally, I'm a person of rational discussions and compromises. I'm all about compromises. I'd compromised on much bigger matters than just food, but like people said ... it quote s not about the food anymore. If it ever was. Like, he'd literally lose nothing if he let me have what I wanted, but apparently, he was willing to lose it all over this, which is fine by me. I gave him back the ring and called everything off. I just couldn't envision myself living like this any longer, having to walk on eggshells for his family and letting him basically override my opinions and have the final say no matter what. Marriage is about compromise, and here he has nothing to lose yet chose to do this to me and my family. Mind you, this is my first serious relationship and I didn't know what to expect, but it's safe to say that he and his mom and family did make it feel like I was taking crazy pills on many occasions, so that's that. Last thing he said was that I chose my family over him and ended everything for the sake of keeping him happy. Decision has been made and it's done. Just wanted to give an update to those who wanted it. Thank you so much for your endless stream of advice and support. Relevant comments. Comment 1, good for you. Marriage is about compromise, and it doesn't sound like your ex is interested in compromising, or even letting you have a say in things. That isn't a partnership. OP. Thank you. And you're right. Honestly. I felt kind of hesitant about posting an update. In fact, I was hesitant about posting my situation as a whole. Normally I'm not the time to share my private business online, but I was desperate. Like I said, there were times where his family made me feel like I was taking crazy pills. Honestly, and I'm gonna say this anyway, I hate them. They always made me feel like an outsider and a stranger. Never really warmed up to me and instead pretended to like me, but it was obvious they resented me. They claim that I'm a covert fat phobic, but in reality, I got mocked, along with my family, for being underweight due to health issues I'd mentioned before. Don't even get me started on future Mill, though I feel as though I gotta let it all out and vent. Comment 2, you go girl. Dude 100% laid out a roadmap where only his opinion matters and yours is irrelevant. This probably wasn't the first time, but it for sure would not be the last. OP. Exactly. Like I said, I'd noticed a pattern of this behavior but kept rationalizing it, which was a huge mistake on my part. It's been utter torture trying to please him and his family. I'm an emotional mess right now, but there's this little voice of reassurance telling me I've gone through the worst and survived it. I'm so thankful this happened. It helped me see things clearer. Refusing my boyfriend's threesome request led to a wedding drama and a shocking revelation. Am I the asshole? This is a throwaway because too much identifying info is on my main page. IF29 met my boyfriend Michael M35 at a show I performed in. I am a theater person as a hobby, and he complimented my performance and bought me a drink. We have been together now for a little over a year. His sister got married last week and I was initially pleased to be asked to be a bridesmaid, but also a bit surprised as she barely knows me, but I thought this was an attempt to have an excuse to also get to know each other better. Michael and I got into an argument the week before because he said that he wanted to entertain the thought of spicing up our sex life and having a threesome. He said since I was bi, why not? I didn't like the idea too much and said so, and it devolved into a petty Cold War and he started to ignore my messages after he left my place. He didn't reply to me at all until the day before the wedding, asking what time he needed to pick me up since we can't go separate, otherwise, people will gossip about us. He barely said anything to me the whole time we traveled to the venue. The wedding was fine, but at the reception he got me a plate and leaned in to kiss me, but I shied away and he got up to mingle. I started feeling ill not too long after and 911 was called. I realized I was having an allergic reaction but had my pen, but still had to be carted off by the ambulance, and that's when someone who was looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked out by the paramedics, and again when they strongly suggested I go to the hospital, but he never replied. I was released by the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't pick up, so I woke up my best friend and she took me home and stayed with me overnight to make sure I was okay. The next morning Michael called me, but I was still asleep, so he left me a lengthy voicemail yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding and that I always have to make things about me. He came over to further berate me and told me he should just break up with me at this point as I'm dramatic and this is all too much, so I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have a legit allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterwards that he knew that the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake, as all the food had signs saying what it was and what the ingredients were, as I'm not the only person with allergies that attended. He left telling me that he can't talk to me when I'm this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him. But his father called me to ask how I was doing, and after I answered he then told me how I'm hurting Michael's heart by blaming him, and Michael has been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation went back around somehow to the threesome and how I don't respect him even in intimate settings or want to hear him out regarding his needs and make things about me. I am so confused because to me this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church and he is a pastor there. So to have him tell me I'm in the wrong threw me. Edit. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional, and I have actually never considered he gave me something I'm allergic to on purpose, and certainly not to use against me to leverage in our argument. But I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. Small update. Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed me the plate he meant for himself, not the one for me. He said he didn't know I was in the hospital and felt bad he wasn't there for me, but he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off much needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied, okay. He is now asking to come over and talk this out in person. Second edit. For any and all of you calling me stupid or implying I am a child and why am I still with this guy, etc. Just know, you remind me a lot of him, of how he used to put me down and bully me, and it's a real wonder of mine if you treat people in your life like he did me. I suspect you do. Glad to be rid of him and indifferent about you. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Be honest, have you, now that you are looking back, seen red flags like this? This behavior likely didn't just show up. Have you ever gotten ill after a disagreement with him? Oddly enough, I am sitting with my BFF and she asked me the same question, and yes, actually. Our first real argument that I can remember, I was down with a stomach bug for almost a week and he visited me and made soup. Then the only big argument I can recall outside this one, he wanted to use labels really soon onto us going on some dates and I didn't, and the next morning, I was sick with chest pains and stomach cramps. I don't want to sound dramatic or accusatory, but since people have commented he might have purposefully given me something I'm allergic to, I just don't know anymore. Comment 2. NTA. The two of you are completely incompatible. He wants threesomes. You want to attend wedding receptions without leaving in an ambulance. Okay. When I read this, I was with Bestie and we've been drinking, and the scream I scrumptious laughing so hard nearly killed me more effectively than the coconut LMAO update 1. Well, many of you were right, I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch insisting he pay for it all, and it was incredibly over the top. He had flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point by way of "if I hurt you," or "that you're feeling X or Y feeling," etc. He quoted some scriptures and said he has repented as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple, and I kinda sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure I dealt with as the GF of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times I let things slide because he is the heir apparent, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. I remember just staring at him and saying it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be aware of my one-ingle allergy, and that he didn't bother to tell his own GF he was stepping out with the guys, or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said it was really actually kind of stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut, and implied I'm an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong, and thus there was no point. I stood up and smiled and said, "You know what, don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night." To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I'm a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply, but this time it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done and he needn't waste his time with me from this point on, and left. I then sent screenshots to his father explaining the situation as best I can without blaming Michael for prior illnesses without proof, and I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church, where we can pray together, talk it out and heal. I felt this way for a while, but I was able to say at this time that using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I am no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one I always thought of was loving, compassionate and kind, and I am done. I was told by him and by further emails that I am no longer welcome at my church until I reconcile with my true husband, and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food, while lazing about my home rather than going to 3 separate church services starting at 8 a.m. and then figure it all out from there. I don't know how to sign off, but I do watch a concerning amount of Charlotte Dobry videos, and she usually ends things with practical shit like, do your laundry or something. So I will just say, live for yourself, feed your soul, and know you're enough. I certainly am going to put in the work to get there, and I hope we all make it to the other side, content and filled with love and joy. And by the way, F you, Michael. I know you are reading this. I know you know it's me, and I hope your socks are always just a little soggy. OP added in the comments. Here I forgot to add to my post, but I didn't want to bring the threesome requests into it. Well, I sent his daddy screenshots of some texts. If you'd like some drama, here are the top 2. It was the night I sent him home after he tried and failed to pressure me into sex. He told me that I was missing out and should be grateful since your body makes me sick, but my love for you is stronger. Would it kill you to be grateful enough to just do a HJ? And on his birthday, I had just been in the hospital after passing out from exhaustion and dehydration and went straight to his party. I stayed at his place until everyone left, and I left soon after helping clean all but the kitchen, and he sent, you could have cleaned the kitchen then or stayed over for sex. Then you're a waste of time if I don't even get birthday sex. Thanks a lot. And after both B suggested adding a third. His dad hasn't responded. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Holy crap, and you stayed with him? You poor girl, no one deserves someone like that in their life, but you didn't say if you told his dad about him sending you to the hospital and potentially killing you. Because we both know, and the rest of Reddit knows, that he did that intentionally. And if there was proof of him giving you that cake, you could probably send his happy ass to jail. OP, I didn't and don't have the best self-esteem. And here is the only black woman in the town that I've known of. I've always known that I'm considered less desirable. Not saying that's right, but just knowing where I live. Been here since my preteen years. When Michael asked me out, it was like a parade. Everyone acted like it was a Cinderella story and I won a lottery or something. I have a friend who I have been texting today, and she is letting me know how dumb I've been. I never told her of our issues, and is about ready to commit crimes. LOL. I think I lost myself for a bit, but I wanted to leave the church low-key for a while because of my treatment, so that helps a bit. Update 2. It has been a hot minute. I forgot about my posts until I was watching a YouTube video on Reddit stories, and the story reminded me that I never did update. I found a church in my city a bit more laid back, like we can go to the pub after and have a laid back laugh. I did like it and made amazing friends I am still in touch with, but the going to church idea came from my therapist, and it was to see if I do identify with the church or the ideals of it, and I don't. So now I am back to being the heathen I am. LOL. My ex quickly moved on and he had a new GF within a month of us breaking us. Bless that woman, I thought, because isn't she in for a ride? Oddly enough, she reached out to me on my Facebook and I was curious and opened it. She started with who she is, how long she and ex have been dating, and how long they knew each other. Childhood friends, so basically forever. She then said that she feels convicted by the Holy Ghost to seek a resolution between me and ex, and she is worried I may be his true wife. And if I cannot forgive, then I am proving I am not, and to let her know, as she cannot marry him until I make this clear. I shit you not. Seeing the screenshots, the chat with my new church buddies, my friends sent vomiting emojis, and that this is a cult and not a faith. I concluded they were right and replied with, yeah, marry him if that's what you want. And nothing more. I am getting messages from members of the church, but I don't much care. I've loved my life since leaving. I didn't know life could be so enjoyed really, and it makes me wonder how much damage the church had on me, but for now, just for fun, I am going to an appointment with a friend of a friend's apprentice on tarot readings. LOL. No, that's true. I was asked. No offense to anyone who believes in it, it's just not normally my thing, so I'm curious and interested. Maybe it will be good. I will know. Am I the asshole for breaking up with my unmotivated girlfriend who has nothing going for her and might become homeless? I, male 24, met a girl, female 22, in a community college class when I was 20. We came from very different backgrounds. I was middle class trying to find a cheaper way to go to college. She was living in almost poverty going to school because she was forced to by her parents who were threatening to kick her out. She dropped out about a year into her schooling while I continued and finished. During her first year we formed a relationship and she moved into my apartment more or less. Her relationship with her parents is pretty much non-existent and she has little to no outside friends besides 1 or 2 women she knew from high school, who are deadbeats in my opinion. I make around $80K a year, so we live relatively comfortably, but there's still some strain on finances. I can't say exactly when I started losing feelings, but the fact that she refuses to work, will not cook and wants to eat out every day, does not want to go to school, and continuously wants to buy and spend money on clothes and other stuff just slowly started grating me more and more. I work in a female-dominated workplace, and seeing, having conversations, and interacting with coworkers who have so much going for them, have fun hobbies, and aspirations makes it all the more worse when your girlfriend is chronically online and spends 7 hours a day scrolling through Instagram or TikTok reels and thinks having sex is all she needs to do on her end. Our relationship isn't bad, we have fights every now and then like an average couple, have an active sex life, but that's pretty much it. From her perspective, if I broke up with her it would be out of nowhere. But I'm pretty much done. And now I could move on quickly and have nothing to be regretful about, as shitty as it sounds. The problem comes in her having no job, no finances, almost no friends, and no family support unit. I'm not a monster. I don't want to make someone virtually homeless, but I don't want to be stuck with someone who has nothing going for them either. I don't know what to do. Edit. Thank you for all the advice in this post. I don't know if this sub allows updates, but I'll talk to her tomorrow about this and start the process of working this out. Relevant comments. OP explains. Yeah, if she was a toxic or just bad partner, I wouldn't have too much trouble ending it, but she's fairly nice, just very lazy. I've tried to talk her into trying different hobbies or interests to get her active, but she always turns them down each time. How long? She wasn't as bad when we were still in school. She at least helped cook and had some aspirations to be a nurse. But I guess when she started getting comfortable, her habits built on until it got to this point. This wouldn't have been a 4-year relationship if this was how it started. She only leaves the apartment when I take her to get food. She either sleeps or is on her phone. Is she miserable with her life? She's not really miserable. She always sends me 30+ memes at work on IG, and is honestly a pretty funny person. She has her mood swings on some days, but that's how she usually is. I've tried talking to her about this more than once, but she either thinks I'm not being serious or tries to change the subject. The one time I was serious, she said would try looking at courses again, but it eventually fell through and I stopped trying. She just doesn't really care. Update 1. For starters, I want to thank everyone for all the advice I was given on the last thread, as it helped me formulate how I would go about doing this. When I made that post, I was having an extremely bad day and didn't expect it to blow up like it did, so I don't think I was able to give her a fair defense. Also, I got dozens of messages, ranging from asking me to hand out her contact info so they could take her in as a live-in sex girlfriend, to helpful advice telling me to start hiding anything valuable. When I had said that she had come from poverty, her father is a laborer while her mother also lives a similar lifestyle to how she lives now. Their home is maybe 1,100 square feet and in a terrible place in town, and given her father's past ultimatum, I don't think he will take her back, as she hasn't been back home in years. Yes, I have talked to her about this, since January, maybe 3 times. Either by gently telling her it would be nice if she went out more to find a hobby, at the very least to flat out say she was wasting away on her phone and that she needs to get a job or go back to school. Each time she either changes the subject, makes it a joke, or follows through for a couple of days before going back to her usual self. She is a kind partner, who asks me about my day, always tries to make me laugh or lighten the mood when I get annoyed, and generally shows a lot of affection. Which makes me feel terrible when none of that works anymore, and I just see her as another person. Now for the confrontation. Last night when we were both getting ready for bed, I didn't take my clothes off and instead just stood there telling her we needed to talk. At first she was just smiling and jumping up and down on the bed with her knees, thinking I wasn't as serious as I was, but eventually she was able to read the mood. I told her something wasn't feeling right anymore, that I've tried to make this work and be patient with her for the past few years, but I didn't know how much more time I was willing to spend waiting for her to get a job, go back to school, or just get a hobby if anything. I told her that it annoyed and grated me that she just didn't seem to care about herself, and that I hated that she had no goals or aspirations. This was probably the first time in a long time she was as attentive as she's ever been during this conversation. And agreed to whatever I was saying, even also giving suggestions on where she can apply, what courses were starting to interest her, and even said I could look over her as she submitted applications online to make sure she wasn't lying. In her head it seemed like I was still willing to make this work, and a part of me believed this would finally be the moment that she would change. So it made the next part even harder for me and for her. At first I told her I didn't love her the same way, which slowly but eventually led to me saying I didn't feel anything at all about this relationship and was jaded. I was tired and wanted a fresh start with someone who was more goal-oriented, and wanted something more out of life. When she realized what I was getting at, she started to cry and asked why I didn't mention this sooner, and I said I've always asked her to cook, to go out with me to try something out, or to just go back to school, even when I offered to pay for her classes. Anything. She said she understands that part, but was upset why I didn't say it was leading to me losing interest in her, because from her perspective it seemed as if I still loved her all the same. She started apologizing, saying she wasn't in the right mental state and saying nothing was motivating her. And she genuinely had no interest in any hobbies. The only thing she liked was spending time with me, which is all she looked forward to on the day when I came home. None of this was really affecting my emotions besides making me feel uncomfortable. So I tried to continue by saying, I think her lifestyle would be better with another person, but she immediately cut me off and became more panicked. She started to apologize again for what she's done and said she would be a better girlfriend, that she would go with me tomorrow to wherever I wanted to go and would look for courses in August that she could start doing. But she did not want to lose me since she had nothing else in life and absolutely hated that I stopped loving her. There were so many tears and snot that I said we would have this conversation again when she calmed down, and we eventually did in an hour or so. She pleaded to give her 2 months to make a change and give her another chance, and promised that she would change. Again she listed off all the places she would apply to and said she would be a better partner. I never wanted to make her homeless, so this seemed like a good settlement. Even though I still had my doubts. I then reaffirmed that I wanted to see other people, but she seemed much more adamant on this issue than the aspirations issue that she would be able to fix this. She said just give her a month to try and make the relationship work, and asked me again and again on what she could do to make her love her again, and that she didn't want me to hate her. She said that this was the worst part of it all. In the only person that she had just done. It seemed as if she was about to break down again, so I said okay, we'll see how this relationship is in a month. In my mind, if I'm allowing her 2 months to get back on her feet, then by a month she would already be ready to move on. I also didn't want her to suffer a complete mental breakdown while I was still living with her, so giving her a month to let her fix the relationship would give her enough time to accept things. I slept on the couch last night and will probably continue doing so for a while. She came out at about 3 a.m. wanting to talk some more, but I said I was exhausted and we would do it tomorrow. She then slept on the floor beside me for the rest of the night, apologizing again. When I told her to stop, she silently said okay and sobbed for a bit under her blanket. But that's everything that's happened so far. This was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I regret nothing and feel much better letting everything out. I don't know how this situation will be in 2 months, but I was firm that it was the deadline. This post will probably get buried, so I probably won't do another update since I don't think anyone will care about this in a week or a month, but I will definitely private message those of you who have been helping me through this on how it turns out, or those who just want to be updated. But yeah, thanks. Edit, for all of you who keep asking what my workplace is, I'm a RN. Update 2, I feel like this will be an easier place to post since it's my page and I don't have to worry about over spamming with small or inconsequential updates anywhere else, as it's only for those wanting to read. I want everyone who has privately messaged me to know I read them all, especially those of you who have gone through similar circumstances as me and have shared your stories. I've been doing some self-reflection and think I know how I want to go about this that will help with my lack of communication skills. I know I'm not a perfect person, but I still stand by my decisions I made that night 100% through and through. I might post an update sooner in a week or so, as the day after our fight I'm filled with a bit more hope than usual. Don't know how long it will last, but better make use of it. But again, I just wanted to post this for everyone sharing your stories with me privately, as I can't message you all, as it's been helping me make decisions on what to do about this all immensely. Hello, I have a partner who wants to start taking an interest in baking. She's a bit self-conscious and doesn't like asking or looking for outside help, and I'm kind of clueless in the subject, but I want to be able to find a resource to give some help for her. Are there any YouTube playlists or something similar you would all recommend to get started for someone who has little experience cooking as well? Update 3. This is a long post, and no, I'm not going to give a TLDR. Hey all, it's been about a week since my last post and I thought I'd give an update. A lot has happened, including the explosion of my first update thread. I have over 50 plus DMs asking me for an update, so instead of copy and pasting replies, I'll do another one. I find it easier to write than to speak in many situations, so this has been a great way to help my decisions and clear my head. Writing everything down has helped tremendously, and I will continue to do so until this is all over, and I will nuke everything afterwards. After the night confrontation, we didn't really speak all too much at home, with it being dry and awkward for a day or two, but I have been told I'm a workaholic by nature, so it was easy for me to stay at the hospital as a distraction, but in that time she did start to cook again. We weren't in the mood to go out to eat together. Eventually though, I sat down with her after she asked for a more thorough conversation on why I felt our relationship was failing. She promised not to cry or get upset, but wanted me to be 100% upfront so she had a better way of understanding, stating she wanted to try everything to fix this. I was really apprehensive about this, and I can't really explain why, but given being together for 4 years, I wanted to at least make an effort myself out of respect, even though a large part of me was angry for even doing so, as I feel I've never had the same from her. There have been many different camps in my last update, the main ones being kick her out immediately and leave her before it gets worse, try to find a way to fix our relationship or end the relationship altogether but continue living with someone who would probably become absolutely neurotic. If I was going to let her stay for 2 months, I would absolutely not be dealing with that. I took consideration in all these main advice discussions and read through almost every reply. Even the most assumptive, bizarre and downright unhinged Redditor takes. More importantly, I took heavy influence from those who have shared with me their past stories, which either led to them being stuck in loveless relationships for years or eventually being able to overcome their problems and have an even stronger connection. Thank you again for your private messages. I read through a lot of your lives. Now for our conversation. She said she saw something on TikTok where couples put a phone on a table with a timer and wanted to do something similar, for each person to air what made them upset. I said that was dumb. If we were going to talk about our problems, it would be better if there was no time limit. She eventually agreed and said I could go first, asking me first when was the time that I completely lost my love for her. As I said before, it was never one action, but a grating feeling that got worse and worse until it got to this point, and I told her that, so she then asked when was the time I felt the most angry. I said it would take some time to think for me, and she said that was fine. After a few minutes something came to mind. I couldn't formulate the right words at first, but it eventually just started to come out. I told her the worst time was when I was first starting at my hospital. To keep it short, the tempo was brutal. It was constant work with little to no downtime, as I was constantly learning new things that school had never taught me, while being expected to be able to handle it as a professional. It was without a doubt the most stressed I've ever been, and I feel like other RNs can relate here. That year hardened the way I think now. That hard work does pay off, if you have the drive and the passion. I told her I think that was when I started losing feelings the fastest, seeing her at home doing absolutely nothing. Coming home to no food made, to her not working a job, to her not learning anything, completely stuck to the internet with nothing to show for it. I said it made me even more upset when I had given suggestions for jobs with pretty easy schedules, or to find a new interest in school that would pan out better than last time, only to be rejected at every attempt. I told her flat out that it disgusted me. She asked me why I didn't make this a bigger issue at the time, that I should have communicated this to her, but I said there's some things that shouldn't have to be said. I shouldn't have to remind her to wash her ass, eat, do something other than mindlessly scrolling on her phone for hours at a day, every day. I also told her that after coming home from the hospital during more stressful days, the last thing I wanted was to spend my time begging my girlfriend to do something productive, so I held my tongue and settled as she was still nice and caring. I had no other reasons to end it, and so the resentment grew worse from then on. It was around here that I became more mean to my regret now, but I will still input it as I have everything else. I told her that when she dropped nursing, I was upset since I felt that she was more than capable of doing what I had done. But after spending more time in the relationship, and spending more time getting to know her, I knew that with the type of person she was, there was no way she could have ever finished. Which is why I suggested easier and more laid-back jobs, less demanding majors for school. Shit, even if she just cooked or found an interesting hobby at that point, I would have appreciated it. Still, she chose to do nothing for years. It's just the type of person she was, and why I felt done for her romantically over time. She asked me if I hated her, and I said I didn't know. I told her she was very loving and kind, but I hated how she handled her life to this point. That I felt no ill will towards her after airing everything out, but I also felt nothing else. I just felt done and ready to move on. Throughout this conversation we kept eye contact, and there were times it seemed like she would break, but like she said, she remained as calm as she could while I said what I had to say. I told her I was done and she could say her piece now, but she asked if we could continue the conversation later and locked herself in our room for the rest of the day. The next day we sat down again and finished the conversation. She told me that she thinks she's depressed, saying that she didn't feel sad before that night, just had no motivation to do anything. I had a couple of messages telling me to ask her to get tested for ADHD, but when I started bringing it up, she was very adamant that is not something she felt comfortable with. I knew she didn't like needles or going to the hospital in general, but her flat-out refusing to get tested for disorders when I told her it was not at all like a regular hospital visit surprised me. She asked me if she was able to change her behavior. Would I give her another chance? I said I didn't know, as I felt nothing right now and didn't know if her doing it would bring any feeling back. Especially since it took my breaking point to do so. She asked if there was any compromise, and I told her again, if in a month I felt like there was enough reason to stay together I would, but that there was no guarantee that my feelings would return. But I would match any effort she also put out. She was frustrated by my answer, but I said that's how it would be. She gave me a piece of paper to look at that she was working on last night that had a list of hobbies and interests she wanted to look into, the two major ones being photography and cooking again. She told me that she was looking into these while also showing me her phone, giving proof that she was putting in applications on Indeed and Glassdoor for some entry-level positions that she might get hired in. I told her if she was able to show enough passion or interest in these hobbies that she showed, I would not care about her working, just anything to improve herself. But if she didn't do anything at all, then it would be best to look for a new job to help her if she moves out. I've also been asked in private messages if I have any personal friends to talk to. There's two female coworkers I confide some information in given how many hours we work together at our hospital, and who I completely trust as in my opinion they are extremely grounded. They both said I would eventually get love bombed and this would all go back to how it once was, and that I needed to stand firm with moving on. They've very helpful friends who have even offered to let me stay over for a few nights, giving the reason that I would fall for her manipulation if I continued being anywhere near her, in their own words. But it didn't feel right since I'm still technically in a relationship, but I said I would consider it if the situation worsened. But again, I find them grounded, so I always try to take their advice to heart. Despite numerous messages from you all privately or openly telling me that this will be a mistake, I want to make the attempt to give this one last try. Though I feel heavily closed and guarded and still feel indifferent with our current situation. But a lot of you have told me this can eventually change with enough work from both parties. I have also taken the advice of those saying to cut off sex, which was my intention from the start anyway, by continuing to sleep in the living room. But each day she has been sleeping on the floor right below me even when I tell her I'd rather be alone with my thoughts, telling me this is something she would not accept. But that's everything so far. Next update will probably be at the month mark, as there's nothing else I feel like I need to say for now, just waiting to see if things can get better now that we're working on this somewhat. My autistic son discovers an incredible talent just in time for the school talent show, surprising everyone. Poor souls struggle to make friends. Both the school and our family are constantly trying to help, but my sweet little boy simply cannot hack it. Despite all this, we keep trying. He is on the spectrum and loves talking about space and Apple. I am slowly teaching him social skills, but it takes a lot of face plantings for anything to stick. He absolutely drives us crazy by talking about Apple products over and over and over. One time he talked so much about Apple while I was driving that I zoned out to the point where I ran over a cone. Last night he hit me with the old, "I entered the talent show." I truly did not expect him to proceed with, "I'm going to recite every iPhone ever made." Usually, I try my best not to hurt feelings, but I simply cannot sit on the sidelines and watch my child commit social suicide. I gave an absolute no and reminded him all he talks about is Apple, and that his classmates do not want to sit there and listen to him talk about iPhones again. He bawled in my arms and said he had no talent. I let him cry it out, then we looked online at different talent show ideas. He didn't like anything he saw. Then a light bulb went off. This kid loves sound. He likes loud, annoying sounds that make me want to scratch my noise-sensitive ears out. So I downloaded him a DJ app and Tidal. We found 6 songs that carried a lot of the weight, then he began mixing. He was awesome. I couldn't believe how easily he took to it. By the end of the night he was able to echo out songs and do all of these cool siren sounds while waiting for the beat to drop. He even came up with fading out the last song and setting a vibrating alarm on his watch, 6 minutes, in order not to lose track of time. We agreed that as soon as the alarm goes off, if he isn't done, he will move on to the last song and fade it out quickly. We packed him a cool little outfit to wear with mirrored sunglasses, his iPad and speaker, then off he went to school. I have been praying all morning. His teacher was really excited for him and I hope he doesn't back out. Even if he does, I am hoping he will stick with this hobby and maybe enter in the next talent show. Comment: it went really great. Better than I expected, honestly. The kids got up and danced and his teacher said this is a moment she will always remember. She told us she wasn't supposed to say this, but he was the best out of all the kids. When he walked out of the door, he was beaming like a light. I think it's the first time he's ever felt connected with the kids. Am I the asshole for getting rid of the foster child my family has had for 7 years, and I don't care if it makes me a bad person? Firstly, please reserve judgment until the end. If you still think I'm a bad person after reading this, I won't stop you. I'm a 30-year-old man. My mom was a foster carer for the last 11 years before she passed away, and she made me promise that I would take over when she died. She had heart failure but had lived for 7 years after diagnosis. She had 2 foster children, John and Paul. John came to live with us when I was 19 years old and he was 8 and had severe behavioral issues linked to his trauma. My world was turned upside down. But I very quickly grew to love him. Underneath the trauma and the difficulties, he was an amazing boy who I loved with my entire heart. He's now 19 himself and still lives with me. He just finished high school and I have no plans to move him out until he is ready. John and I have a great relationship. On the other hand, Paul is 16 years old. He came to live with us when he was 9. Paul has severe special needs, and no matter how much I've tried, I just cannot connect with him in the same way I did for John. Whereas John's behavior never bothered me, with Paul they do. I find him frustrating and I have to remind myself that he is only on the same level as a 3/4-year-old mentally, and it's not fair that I get frustrated at him. When Mum was still alive, she took the main role of looking after Paul, and I supported her. Which was okay, but I knew that when she was gone I would struggle with him by myself. I didn't sign up to do this. I didn't sign up to look after him for the rest of my life, I just didn't. Mum died 6 months ago, and I said to myself I would try. I kept Paul for all this time, but I just can't cope with him. I can't. I told my social worker that he needs to be moved by the end of the month because I just can't manage. I want to continue fostering, and I love being a foster carer. But I just cannot meet his needs, and it was different when Mum was still alive. I feel so guilty because I made my mum a promise that I would care for him until he was at least 18. But I'm building resentment towards him, and it isn't fair on him. He deserves to have someone who loves and cares for him in the ways that I just can't. So yeah, call me selfish, call me scum. Whatever, I deserve it. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Have you looked into state programs that could help with having a nurse or special needs caregiver to help with the burden? Uprooting Paul could hurt him even more, and he might be looking at you for support. Look into some programs to help and see what they say. If you need to move Paul, make sure you can discuss it with him. With him having a mind of a 3/4-year-old, that does some real damage to him if you aren't careful. My condolences and good luck. Edit. The other commenters are providing good advice and words of encouragement. OP. I've tried everything, any and all resources and support there is. When he's at school it's not too bad. He has a transport to and from school every day and has a career who comes and takes him out for 5 hours each week. Plus I have 2 days each month where he is sent to a different foster carer, so I can have some peacetime. But even with the support I can't manage it. I feel guilty for giving up, but I honestly tried my best. This doesn't mean I'm cutting him off completely. I'll still visit him sometimes. But I can't meet his needs, and I really tried. OP responds to multiple questions about suck it in and continuing with fostering Paul, and if there are any programs or residential homes that work with people like Paul. OP, no. Don't worry, they already have a place for him in a residential home. I don't know if the system is different in different countries, but giving notice here on a placement isn't seen as the end of you fostering, and I didn't have to justify it beyond, I just can't cope, luckily. Because I would have broken down if I had had to find justifications for it. It's funny, my mum used to say that the agency would always have had a way harder time playing John than Paul. John has very mild learning disabilities, but mainly linked to trauma. And had very bad behavior, even now, linked to his trauma, even though it's way better than when he was 8. LOL. He's given me black eyes and bloody noses, smashed my laptops and TVs. And there was never a point, throughout all of that, where I ever thought I wouldn't give up on him. I would foster another child like him in a heartbeat and struggled to see why anyone wouldn't. To me he was just a kid in a tough spot, and our love helped him. My mum explained to me that children like him are actually harder to place because people are less forgiving of behaviors without a cause they can physically see, like an obvious learning disability. I really tried to extend that to Paul, genuinely I did. I just couldn't. It just didn't click. I can't do the care he needs, sadly. And it's gutting for me because I really tried. And even though, I don't feel that intense love for him that I do for John. I would never want Paul to be put in harm, or not cared for. That isn't how the foster care system works. Me being unable to cope with Paul, who has extreme needs, means I should never be able to care for potential 10s of children that I can support throughout my lifetime. Because I cannot support one child is severe. Sen means that any potential foster children that I could support should what? Just continue living in residential group homes. Have a think about how that logic works for you. Me admitting I can't cope with one child means that 10s of future children could go without care and love in your world. Does that make sense to you? He is already on the highest package of support, which is immense, and I'm entirely grateful to my agency. But even with it, I'm not in a position to support him how he needs it, unfortunately. He already has a place in a residential home, and I will still visit him. I don't want to just move him there and pretend he never was part of my life. I'm not that heartless, at least. LOL. Update. It has now been a few days since Paul moved out, so I thought I would give a little update. Firstly, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read my previous post and for those who offered support and understanding. It meant a lot, honestly. Paul has been placed with a new family who specialize in caring for children with severe special needs. I believe this is the best environment for him, and he seems to be settling in well. I am keeping in touch with his new carers, and they've assured me that he's receiving the care and attention he needs. At first the house felt different. Quieter but also emptier. There's a lingering sense of guilt, but I'm also more at peace knowing he's in a place better suited to his needs. John and I have had more time to spend together, which has been nice. We've talked a lot about everything that's happened, And I'm grateful for his understanding and support. I've also started seeing a therapist to help work through the guilt I've been feeling and to help me grieve. Yesterday, my agency reached out saying they have 2 little boys needing housing for a short-term placement. They said initially 6 weeks, but it could be extended. They are coming tomorrow, and I'm excited. They're 9 and 11 and are coming directly from their birth families. This will be my first proper placement, so I would be lying if I said I didn't feel a little anxious. Thank you again to everyone who reached out. Relevant comments. Comment 1. It sounds like everything is working out well for both you and John as well. Paul and the kids you're able to help now with these 2 and in the future. Good job taking care of yourself in this difficult time with therapy too. Comment 2. So glad to hear you made the right decision. Sounds like you're very awesome and I hope your new placement will be a good fit. Debbie Coleman 1010. Good luck to you and all the boys. You did the right thing for you all. You tried and it just didn't work out, and anyone telling you differently has never even come close to taking care of someone with severe disabilities. My mother moved away with her fiancé, and left me feeling abandoned. She was a terrible mother. I tried posting this elsewhere, but I think it got caught in a spam filter and the mods haven't responded. I don't know if this is the right place to go either since I'm 16F. Like, I mostly live with my dad, but I spend a weekend every month with mom. They divorced 3 years ago. Mom moved in with my cousin and it was cool cause I went there all the time. Like a year and a half ago mom made me go there, introduced me to this girl and came out to me and said they were dating. She and her fiancé are engaged now. She also said they were moving to Victoria in a week. So yeah, after a week she was gone. From where I am to her it's a drive, a ferry ride and then another drive. It takes a while to see her, that's why I can only go once a month. Since she left everything's been so sucky between us. Now it's like a good morning message and FT good night for 5 minutes. And everything else that changed with her just dipping like that sucks too. I don't even like visiting her, cause it's like I don't belong with her and her fiancé, but I went cause I thought that she wanted to see me and I miss her a lot every day. This weekend I was in Victoria and she was FT my cousin while I studied and they got to wedding talk. She said stuff like how her life is 100x better since she left, how she's finally got real happiness in her fiancé. Her fiancé is her world now and can't wait to fully move on from her old life. It just made me so freaking angry, like her life is so much better with me barely in it. And move on from that old life? I'm from that old life. I guess she noticed I was pissed cause at night she tried to talk to me. I said I didn't want to talk, but she's like she deserves to know when something's wrong with her girl since I always seem so depressed whenever I come over, and that just made me snap and I lost it and started shouting at her. I was like, I fucking hate the way she came out cause my life got a lot worse and it ruined things between us, and it sucks that it's like she wants me gone cause she's happier without me. That started a pretty bad argument cause she was like, I'm blowing it out of proportion. I just don't understand. And then mom just left the room, but I heard her crying when I walked by her room to go to the washroom at night. In the morning her fiancé drove me to the ferry right after breakfast instead of after dinner. Since then it was just text cause I didn't want to talk to her. My dad and his GF have noticed my attitude, so yesterday I told them what happened and he flipped, telling me I couldn't say that shit to my mom, and his GF said I was an asshole for saying it. Before I went to sleep I FT'd mom to talk again and she said my happiness is hers and if she's why I'm depressed I shouldn't see her till I'm ready. Now I don't know like if I was wrong to say that shit to mom or what I should do even. My fucking counselor is still in Barbados. My dad's at work and his GF's like she's staying out of it, and my cousin did too. Again, sorry if this is the wrong subreddit. If there's a better one for me to post since the other one I tried doesn't seem to be it either. Please let me know. Update. So a lot of shit has happened since my last post and I just feel more shit than before. I didn't plan on posting here again, but you all were so nice I thought it couldn't hurt to hear what you have to say. But I called my uncle, he wanted to see me. Cause I was scared my dad told him, and then he's ashamed of me too cause he's gay and he's my fave uncle ever. So he picked me up after school and I went to his apartment and he just gave me a big hug because he knew something was up. So I told him what I said and why I said it, and that I was scared he'd be mad at me too if my dad was the one who told him. He just told me he isn't mad and he understands, and we played basketball at the court nearby until it was time for him to drop me off. That was like the last time I've even felt actually happy cause the entire rest of this month has been such absolute shit. Like, I phoned my mom to say sorry the day after and talk about how I feel, but all she did was get mad at me for telling my uncle and said I'm not allowed to share stuff about her home without her permission. I said I was sorry about both things, but she said it didn't matter now and just hung up. Then her fiancé texted and just said to give my mom a few days to calm down. That just made me mad cause why should I? She's my mom. I should be able to phone her whenever, and I tried, but she just declined my call, and then I think I turned off her phone. I don't know, I haven't slept properly at all since then, cause I think I ruined things with my mom for good. Like, all she's been doing is texting me and we've barely actually talked. Like, I keep thinking about it and my thoughts and dreams just get all messed up, and it's like I get this soft lump in my stomach that keeps coming and going the more I think about it. It feels like I was right about me being part of her old life, and I wish I'd never said what I did to her. Then it turns out I was supposed to get a tetanus shot when I was 11, but I didn't for some reason. We're not anti-vaxxers. So I had to get it now, cause Dad said Vancouver Coastal Health Authority was on his ass, and I ended up having a terrible allergic reaction to it. Like, I got sent to the hospital for a week cause of it, like apparently super rare reaction, hooray for me. And that fucked up my exams too, and my mom didn't even come see me cause she was going to a cabin with her fiancé the day after. She talked to my dad on the phone and learned how bad it was, but just texted me she knew I'd be better and that if I was still there when she came back she'd come right away. Like, it made me want to stay in the hospital for longer. She didn't fucking come, everyone came but her. Like, my cousin came every day, and my dad's GF even slept by me a few days, and my nieces and even my boyfriends and best friends' moms came, but mine didn't. And when I got out, all I got was a text saying "so happy you're out of the hospital baby" with a selfie from her and her partner showing off the cabin included with it. Like, I couldn't stop looking at that stupid photo. I obsessed over it for days and kept getting that stupid feeling in my stomach, and so I smashed my phone, and my dad's GF heard and he got an emergency meeting with my counselor. She's a psychologist, but I've always called her that. Set up. And I told her everything but more details, obvi, and at the end of it she said I'm very likely depressed and might need treatment. I don't know. I got scared and asked her to tell my dad, and she did, and told us to get our family doctor to give a referral to a psychiatrist to get proper diagnosis for treatment, or to just get it from the family doctor. My dad got scared and made us get that referral the next day. My dad made the appointment and asked my mom to come, but she said she won't be able to and just texted me to stay strong and remember I'm the most important thing in the world to her. I don't know what to do. I don't want meds or anything. I just want my mom to love me like she used to again. If you guys have any advice on what to do, I need to hear it, cause it's like my mom isn't even listening to me anymore, and the appointment is on Friday and I'm feeling scared. Second update. So, I would have made an update earlier, but I just didn't have time. I'm in the hospital right now recovering from my ankle surgery, and all I have is time until I can go home on Friday, so I thought I might as well update. The day after I wrote my post, I had my niece's mom, my cousin-in-law, but she introduces me as her little sister, so sister-in-law, drive me to my uncle, and he just gave me the biggest hug ever, and I don't know, I just ended up crying a little and they ended up calming me down. I told my uncle about the appointment with the psychiatrist and that I was scared even though everybody, you guys, was saying it would be okay, and that I'd just been so unhappy and that I'd just missed my mom so much. He agreed to go with me and my dad to the psychiatrist cause my mom wouldn't be coming. I don't know, I just didn't sleep at all that night and just felt so scared in the morning and kept thinking about mom and didn't want to go to school either, but I did go, just felt so weird, like that feeling in my stomach was just there and not going away. Only hanging out with my boyfriend felt right, and before lunchtime I just fell asleep in class and got sent to the office. They phoned my dad and he signed me out and dropped me off at my uncle's house. He was already taking care of my niece, so I felt bad, but I went to sleep at the same time as her, and he took a really cute photo of us sleeping next to each other. He woke me up when my dad came back and we just went to the psychiatrist together. Long story short, at the end of the appointment the psychiatrist prescribed me a really low dose of antidepressants cause I'm still scared. I've been taking them and they have made me feel a bit better, but I have another appointment next week cause my counselor says I might need a higher dose. When I vented to my counselor, she said she'd be willing to host an extra joint session between me and my mom on Zoom if she agreed, and that it might help if I get my feelings across with a third party. I didn't want to do it, but some of you recommended it and my counselor said it could be a good first step. So I called my mom and it was a short conversation again, but she agreed to the counseling session and all I had to do was send her the Zoom link, so we set one up for later. So I had the Zoom session in our computer room so I'd be all alone there, and at first my mom seemed so excited because she was like, we can work through our issues and put them behind us. I don't want to talk about all of it. I mean, I couldn't anyway. I can't remember most of it, but it didn't go well at all. Like when my counselor brought up not being with her that much, my mom said when I came to University of Victoria, I'd obviously stay with her, and I just said after everything I didn't even want to go to the University of Victoria anymore and would rather just go to University of British Columbia cause everybody here actually wants me. My mom said that was ridiculous since outside of Waterloo, University of Victoria was the best option for software engineering in Canada, and University of British Columbia only has electrical computer engineering, so I'd have to go to her if I still wanted to do that. I remember my mom said a few times like she'd spent over a decade doing nothing but being a mom, and now that she finally understood herself she just wanted time to explore that, and I should appreciate that. Then at the end of it I told my mom that I hated that she didn't come and see me in the hospital and that she didn't even phone me like I told her I was scared I'd die, and she just said it wasn't that serious cause it was a vaccine and those protect us, and to not act like it was serious. I don't know, that made me mad and I just muted my mic cause I didn't want them to hear me crying, but I kinda had a breakdown and just ran out to my dad and his fiancée cause I was crying. They said they ended the session, but I don't know what they said to my mom or the counselor. Apparently I fell asleep crying on the couch while hugging my dad, but I don't remember any of it, but my dad said I was crying really loudly. I think they carried me to their bed because when I woke up in the morning I was there and my dad was on a mattress by the door and she was on one by the washroom door. They said it was to block me cause they were scared I'd try something. My dad took my new phone and laptop from me for a bit and said it might be healthy for me to stay off them for a bit. I have them back now. I haven't talked to my mom at all since then. I mean, not even good morning, good night texts. She hasn't contacted me at all about my broken ankle even though I had surgery yesterday, and I feel like she doesn't even care that I got hurt. Like, I know dad told her that I'm going to surgery but she hasn't called. I have my phone and laptop back now, but my dad made me delete IG and Snap because he's worried seeing her on there might trigger me. A lot of you said I should stop talking to her, but I feel bad about it. Like, when I think about it makes me feel worse, like it's over now and I don't have her anymore. I just want her back. The only time I learn what's up with her is if I go to my cousin, who my mom stayed with after the divorce, and ask, and apparently she's still happy and is occupied with all her wedding planning. Like, another thing that sucks is that I used to love watching Scream with my cousin, but now I can't even watch it cause I feel bad for Billy cause his mom left him too, and I feel bad for feeling like that cause he's the villain. So I couldn't even get through our rewatch and we couldn't even watch the new one. I told my counselor that I still feel really bad and sad and nothing's changed, and she said I need to bring it up at my next appointment with the psychiatrist so he can up my dose. I don't know, I feel confused and I don't like not seeing or talking to my mom at all. I feel like I've done the wrong thing. I've tried to do things we used to do with my dad's fiancée and my boyfriend's mom, but it's not the same and I just miss her more even though she probably doesn't miss me at all. I wish I could see her, but I don't want to keep ruining things for myself cause what if she doesn't want me anymore? I'd rant to my counselor about it, but I'm stuck in the hospital bed till Friday. So I guess that's why I'm back here looking for advice on what to do when I'm out of here. Third update. Hey guys, I'm posting again cause I'm confused as to what's going on and I thought maybe I'd get some opinions here before I bring it up with my therapist. Pretty much, I don't know if my mom hates me still or if now she wants to be my mom again. Because everything that she's done lately has made it so confusing. So my foot is still bad. The doctor said it's healing, but I'm mostly confined to crutches or to a wheelchair, and so I'm not really able to go to a lot of places. I mean, I can go anywhere, but I don't go cause it just takes too long to get around. I'm guessing that my cousin told my mom because apparently she came to New Westminster and did her wedding dress shopping there with my cousin and her fiancé, and she didn't even tell me. I know we hadn't talked since the therapy session, but she promised me that I would get to do that with her and she didn't even tell me. I found out because when I visited my cousin she showed me the dresses she was going to wear at the wedding and at the reception, and the ones my mom and her got for me to wear at those. I was confused because I was sad she didn't take me, but happy cause that meant she still wanted me there. Anyway, her wedding was on Canada Day and I went with my cousin to Victoria a week earlier. My dad did say I didn't need to go, but I didn't want to miss it. We stayed at an Airbnb that my mom got for some of our relatives cause her place was too small. She didn't come to visit me there, but my cousin went to meet her and I didn't go cause my foot was hurting really bad. When she came back she said my mom was really disappointed I didn't come as well. The day after I was going to go shopping downtown with my cousin, but then my mom came. Like, when she saw me she didn't give me a hug like she usually gives, she just kinda held my shoulders and gave an awkward kiss on the cheek and said she's glad that I decided to come. Then she kind of turned me over to my aunt, my mom's cousin, to go shopping with instead cause she and my cousin would be busy that week with all the wedding stuff and making sure it all went perfectly so we couldn't go downtown. I love my aunt, so it wasn't bad going downtown with her. She didn't even mind pushing me in the wheelchair, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. 2 days before the wedding they had this really big family dinner where my mom and her wife were introducing people to their relatives. Because my foot got swollen and the boot was hurting it, I had to go in the wheelchair. So my mom didn't even introduce me to people, and one of the few times I was able to talk to her, this guy related to her wife interrupted us, asked who I was, and she just said don't worry about her, and then had an aunt of mine wheel me away. That made me really upset, but I did feel a bit better because her fiancé's parents brought gifts for me. Not my kind of stuff. I think they thought I was younger than I am. The wedding itself was cool. My foot wasn't badly swollen then, so I was able to use my crutches. My mom acts so differently then and made me take a bunch of pictures with her and with her fiancé, and she seemed so happy and told me that it was the best day of her life only because I came. At the reception I wore the dress that she got me, but I couldn't walk in the crutches while wearing it. Not like the wedding one. So my aunt made me go in that dress and in my wheelchair even though I didn't want to. And my cousin said I could wear a different dress, but my aunt was like, my mom got the dress specially for me and will be upset if I don't wear it. Then at the reception I wasn't seated at the table with family near the stage where she and her fiancé sat, but at a table with kids I didn't even know, even though some of my relatives younger than me were at the family table. My aunt said they moved me there because of my wheelchair, but I just don't get why I couldn't be with my family. My mom didn't even take a photo with me at the reception. She just came to me once and said hi, and I wasn't even in the family photo cause we didn't bring my crutches cause of my wheelchair, so my aunt said my mom told them to leave me cause they couldn't fit me in. Then the day after we were going home my mom came to say goodbye to us. She talked to me alone for a minute and then she said sorry for everything that happened between us before and that she was hoping we could get past it, but if we couldn't she was still happy. I came to her wedding. I didn't really get to say anything, cause she just hugged me and sent us on our way. I don't feel that sad about everything anymore though, cause I think that the antidepressants have been helping. I have been feeling happier for about a month now and nothing has happened to me like I was afraid. For the last 2 weeks, my mom has been texting good morning and good night again when I didn't do anything, like text, call or phone or FaceTime since the therapy session with her. It hasn't been more than that, but I've been saying it back. I'm just confused with the way she's acting and what she wants. Do you guys have any clue or advice? Edit, I wish I could say thank you to everybody who has commented and given advice. I'm sorry if I didn't respond to you personally, but it means so much to me that you guys cared. I've read everything and I will be bringing up a lot of this with my counselor. Thank you guys so much. I love you all. Fourth update. So I got a phone call from my mom and I did answer, cause I guess I was curious, cause she's only been texting me since her wedding and she said she wanted me to come over, and even though I was really missing her, because I was going to go with my uncle's family to Seattle that weekend, I said no. I think I would have said no anyway because I was just planning on staying away like everybody here suggested, and my counselor also said that it might be good to define my life without her. She said okay, but then the day after, I think she phoned my dad because he said that I had to go to Victoria instead. I told him I didn't want to go, but we ended up arguing and he said that I didn't have a choice and my uncle would take me somewhere when I got back. So my dad dropped me and my cousin off at the ferry, and when we got to Victoria it turns out my mom and her wife, I guess stepmom now, moved into their new house. My mom's wife wasn't there cause she was in Ottawa for work, but her parents did come. They're really nice. They kind of went on about how they thought they'd never have grandkids and were so happy when they learned my mom had me. They did offer to get me some presents this time, but my mom let them take me to dinner at some pierogi place downtown instead. I don't know what to think about the visit because so much of it was good, but the one bad part was really bad. When I got there I wanted to talk to her about the stuff at her wedding and everything else, and I wanted to tell her that I would rather have gone with my uncle, but then I just felt really nervous and just couldn't because I don't know, I kind of felt like I'd just ruin the entire trip if I did. So I just didn't, and maybe that was the wrong thing. The first thing I noticed in her house was her giant graduation picture where she's holding a baby me above the fireplace. Then my mom surprised me by showing me my room, and it's perfect. I have a huge bed, a big personal washroom, a walk-in closet, one of those fancy standing desks and a TV. It's all white cause my mom was like, when my foot is better she wants me to come and paint and decorate it all with her. She even promised she'd never let anybody use the room even if I'm not there that often. The first night after I got back from the pierogi place, my mom, my cousin and I stayed up so late just watching TV, and I even fell asleep hugging her. The next day we went downtown and my mom took us shopping and then to the Royal British Columbia Museum, the one with the mammoths. My foot and my hands really started hurting after my mom made me use my crutches and not wheelchair because she said it'd be good exercise, so then she took us to a spa. We took so many pictures and I'm pretty sure she put them on Instagram, but I'm not allowed on it anymore, so I'm not sure. I was really tired when we got back, so I conked out right away, and when I woke up in the morning, Mom actually brought me pancakes in bed because of my foot, cause I love it when she makes those. The rest of that day was good too, except at night my mom said that when I moved in for university, we could make every day like this, so I reminded her that I might go to University of British Columbia instead. We got into a really big argument about university and I did scream at her and bring up stuff from before, but pretty much my mom said that she wants me to go to University of Victoria. If I still want to do software engineering, and said that if it was any other kind of engineering I wanted to do she wouldn't mind paying for the University of British Columbia, but that it's not good for software. She did say she would still pay no matter where I went, but she'd be really disappointed if I chose not to go to the best university for my degree where I could stay with her, just 'cause I blamed her coming out and moving for everything bad that's happened to me since then. She also said I needed to stop exaggerating how bad everything has been because it shouldn't make me change my university plan. I tried telling her that's not what I meant, but I couldn't say it right and I fucking started crying and she seemed to get really mad. She didn't yell or anything, but she just gave a frustrated sigh and said I needed to stop crying, grow up and accept that she handled things the best way she could and my attitude problems were why it's been a bad year for us. That just made me cry more, and she said if I don't grow up I'm never going to get a husband, and then left the room. I just kind of kept crying cause I don't feel like any of that is true, and the husband part was so fucking weird and I honestly can't stop thinking about that part specifically. Half an hour later, she came back with water and made me drink and started telling me how if I want to do computer or electrical or any other engineering she'd support the University of British Columbia but not the University of Victoria. Is the best for software outside of Waterloo, and she doesn't want to send me so far away but will still pay for it if that's what I choose. I don't know why she wanted to keep talking about that, but I didn't, so I just agreed when she said she'll take me to talk to an advisor to convince me next time I come over. Me and my cousin left early the next morning, so yesterday. And my mom said she'd try and come over for my birthday because her in-laws really wanted to attend and that she'd try and make an appointment at the University of Victoria. Once my foot's better. The thing is that argument was the one bad thing about that visit. Everything else would have been perfect because it was just like it used to be with her, and I don't even know if I'd be posting if it had been, but I just can't stop thinking about the stuff that she said when we argued. I don't even know why she said the husband thing. I just don't get what the fuck she meant by that, or why she would bring it up. I'm not going to smash my phone this time, but I do feel mad thinking about it. I told my cousin about the argument we had on the way back and she told me she personally thinks I should go to University of British Columbia and would try to convince my mom, but that she thinks she just wants me to live with her again. I told my dad and his fiancé about it and he apologized for making me go but said that he had to. He and his fiancé have checked on me a dozen times already. Like, I'm get that stupid fucking feeling in my stomach again every time I think about it, and I wish I'd been able to go with my uncle instead. But I am going to spend the rest of the week at his apartment, so I guess it's fine. I'm going to go to my counselor again today before my uncle picks me up. Does anybody have any advice for me that I can bring up? 'Cause we went through comments posted here last time. Fifth update. So some stuff has happened. I've pretty much just been texting with my mom since my visit to her. I tried to keep it good night, good morning, but when I didn't respond to her other messages, she phoned my dad and he told me I didn't have to phone her but to at least respond to her other messages. I did have to go to Victoria for Thanksgiving because her wife's whole family was going to be there and she told my dad I had to go. I was only there for 3 days with my cousin, and the first 2 days, my mom pretty much spent with me and it was like it used to be again. Like she and I went shopping, we even cuddled to sleep watching TV again, but the third day she and her wife were focused on the dinner and guests and everything, so I get it. Yeah, I was upset that she paid really little attention to me, but her wife's entire immediate family was there and I get that she needed to focus on them. But when we left after dinner, we had to take the really late ferry. My mom said bye and that she was going to book a meeting at the University of Victoria to take me to, and didn't even give me a second to talk about it before waving us bye. And then it went back to just texting good morning, good night until my birthday. So then my mom and her wife came with her wife's parents because my mom was like they really wanted to celebrate my birthday. I guess they're my step-grandparents, but I really like them and they seem to really like me too. I mean, my step-grandma said the best thing about the wedding was that they finally got a grandchild and they brought a lot of presents for me. They have a niece around my age and they had her go out with them and just get so much stuff that they think someone my age will like, and I do like it. My mom got me an album of pictures of us and said to look at the photos whenever I miss her 'cause it'll make it like she's right there with me. At the party, mom and dad seemed to get along just like when they were married. Like they were laughing, telling jokes, and even had me do goofy pictures with them like we all used to. Mom's wife got along with dad's fiancé and with my uncle, his son and his son's wife. My mom didn't talk to my uncle at all beyond when he came to say hi to her, and she said hi in a really mean tone to him, which was weird since they used to be so close. I guess she's still mad at him for when I talked to him about what was going on. She was really weird with my boyfriend and was non-stop making jokes about him and me getting married and making her a grandma. She straight up said to him, I don't want you to wait until I'm gray and in my 40s to make me a grandma. But his mom also got in the jokes, so I guess it was just a mom thing. My mom and her wife left after only about an hour and a half in order to go stay at a fancy hotel all the way over by Cole Harbor, even though my dad did offer them a room. Mom just said she doesn't feel it'd be appropriate to stay in the same house as him and it's too painful for her, 'cause she designed the house when I asked her why she couldn't stay. It did piss me off cause they came at 4 o'clock and so when everyone was setting up I guess that means they missed the actual party. My step-grandparents stayed though and only left in the morning when my mom and her wife came to pick them up. Then at like 8:30, my mom FaceTimed me but it looked like she and her wife were in the hotel spa or something. It doesn't make sense cause I thought those closed pretty early in the day but they were wearing those robes and looked like they were someplace really fancy. Then my mom was like she has to hang up cause she doesn't want me to see them without clothes on and they were both giggling at that. That really fucking pissed me off that they ditched my birthday to go hang out in a spa. Maybe they were actually doing something else but I honestly don't want to even think about that beyond what I have. Then there was the album that she gave me as a present. I didn't really think about that a lot then because I was just happy that she came. But I did try yesterday because my dad's fiancé was meeting with some of her relatives for last-minute planning because her and dad's wedding is on Sunday. I wasn't with them because I was studying but when I did leave my room to get my charger I heard them talking about me. My dad's fiancé was saying the best stuff about me but her relatives were saying some shitty things about my mom and she wasn't stopping them. She was also talking about how my mom is forcing my dad's hand to send me to her over winter break instead of my uncle's cause, that's when their honeymoon is. I didn't mean a spy and I get now that I'm writing about it that what they were saying wasn't exactly wrong and they were only saying it because they didn't think I'd hear but it really fucking pissed me off and it still does. So because I was upset I looked at the album and it's pictures of both of us from when I was a baby until now. Behind each picture she slid a note about why that memory is special or what the picture means to her if she can't remember. But it just made me angry because of how few photos there are from after she moved to Victoria. Most of them are the ones of the wedding day and barely anything before that. There's one photo in it that was like a month before she came out and it's when she lived at my cousin's house and pretty much I surprised her with cookies that my cousin and I made that day. When I surprised her, she hugged me so tight and told me she was so proud of me and my cousin took the photo on her phone. But that night I found her crying in her room and she said it's because I'm growing up and said something like how she wishes she could live in moments like that forever since she's so proud of me. And it just makes me so mad because that's what I want back and the fact that I'm not even in photos of her pre-wedding events and reception and so much other stuff in Victoria just makes it seem as if the album is her giving me proof that I've barely been in her life and that I should be happy for it. And I know I shouldn't be thinking that because she actually gave me such a good gift and I'm poisoning it in my own mind instead of valuing it and all the memories inside. My therapist has been trying to help me define life without her and it's hard cause I don't want to because I can't let go of this feeling that it could be good again and I don't want those people to be right. My therapist says it's all right to want that but for my own sake I need to in case it doesn't ever happen and it'll help once I'm in university so I've been trying but I hate it. So, I guess I came here again to ask for advice and stuff I can bring up in therapy. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I also thought that perhaps the grandparents-in-law saw how little OP was being acknowledged and wanted to change that. If they were really crazy about having a grandchild they would probably want a genetic one. I think they might possibly be decent people trying to help that poor neglected kid. Op's mother is a cruel, disgusting human being. Comment 2. I get that feeling too. Mom was completely okay with leaving her old life, Inkle her daughter, behind, until wannabe granny grandpa started wanting to be involved. Now daughter has value. It's so infuriating that all these adults, minus the uncle, keep blaming shifting onto her, like why does this kid have to make all the goddamn adjustments in behavior and attitude? Of course she is depressed that her mom threw her away. But this kid keeps acknowledging. And she could be handling things better instead of making them worse. She isn't. It is normal to be mad at mom for treating her like an unwanted wedding crasher. She justified every shitty thing as something she, the kid, could have done better. No. She could have had a teenage meltdown when mom ditched her for the wedding dress shopping or when she didn't even introduce her at the wedding. Being put at the kids' table, fucking police. Comment 3. The husband comment makes way more sense now if she wants her to have kids. That's totally why she said that. She wants her daughter to have kids so the in-laws have grandkids. That's totally it. Why would a lesbian make a comment like that to their daughter? It seems so weird and not something a gay person would say. But if she wants her daughter to have kids, of course she wants her to have a husband. She probably wants to speed that process along. What a fucking awful thing to say to your 16-year-old daughter while she's crying. Instead of being empathetic and understanding, she dismisses her feelings, insults her, then tells her she won't ever get a husband. I hope this girl realizes she doesn't need her mom. She's not at fault, and she gets better with her depression.